And let's go ahead and get into it and say hello to Happy Christmas with Santa. And notice his beer and his musket, it looks like, or some kind of flintlock and monster cookies. All right. Hello, everyone. Let's see. People are coming in. Oh, yeah.
Apologies. I got a little nervous, after last time. I was a little on edge, like, oh no, now is it going to be the visuals? So it's
well, and I'm hiding my camera because StreamYard is telling me my connection is iffy. So, all right.
Well, that must mean we're doing good work, right? When the technical issues come to play, that means we are on the right track. That's what I tell myself.
Now, Jon, did you want to go ahead and introduce yourself to everyone who's seen you for the first time?
Yeah, Jon Bray, Jon Bray on X and Instagram. I'm pretty prolific on there. You can find any of my work, any of my theories have been laid out there probably 2 or 3 times at this point.
All right. And did you want to kind of walk people through kind of how you got into this, like kind of what you do and how you got into this this theory? What kind of pushed you that direction?
Well, my whole interest in it started kind of like a fluke. I thought that Charlie had a bulletproof vest on. My background is in body armor, so I thought that I may have some expertise in the subject, but it only took about 3 hours of research to realize he didn't have a bulletproof vest on. But at that point, I was already vested, and just nothing made sense about it. So I have kind of an obsessive mind, hyper focused, some say, and I just kept diving deeper. And the more I researched, the more inconsistencies I found, and technology's in such a way now that you can go about as deep as you want. So I just kept coming up with more questions and finding more, things that made me want to dive deeper.
Now, for the people that don't know exactly what you do you kind of want to explain what we're looking at? We'll pull up some of your,
These are IOTV collars, basically ballistic vest. Those collars particularly are made to protect your neck of all things. The Army made about 200,000 of them with no means to clean them, and you can see the ones on the dirty collars were just piling up, and they had basically people going to war without body armor, so they came to us and we developed a means to clean them. You can see it worked pretty well, and we built a whole plant to clean them and cure them and send them back out, and we ended up cleaning just shy of 200,000 vests before the kind of program got shipped off to Leavenworth for prisoner labor. So we got outbid by captives, but that's how it goes. But I had a good time. I learned a lot, and I got to help the country, so that's always a plus.
All right, awesome. Now, do you want to go ahead and share your theory, kind of give like the general overview for people, and then we'll start jumping like more into your science and that kind of stuff, and into like the plant and everything else?
Sure. I have one more question, if we could, just on Jon's background, because what you guys are going to hear is quite an explosive, literally, theory. And Jon, given your background with Department of Defense and the extensive amount of knowledge that you do have any concerns about repercussions potentially for you or your business, about speaking out about this sort of non-traditional theory?
Yeah, I mean, you could always, my payment processor could cut me off. I mean, there's so many ways now that you could have unintended consequences, but I'm not a fearful person. It doesn't really, I don't stay up at night worrying about it. And I live in an area that's pretty safe. So I sleep well at night, I'll put it that way. So I think the truth is more important than anything else.
Yeah. Let's go for it then. Dive right in.
So basically, from the get-go, the multiple angles of video, it made it apparent to me like the official narrative of a single shot to the neck just didn't make any sense, especially when you look at the videos in slow motion, frame by frame. It's pretty obvious that the shirt, the necklace, and the magnetic clasp, they all have very energetic movements well before you see an apparent neck wound. And a 30-06 is a very powerful rifle round, very fast. So if we're to be led to believe that he was shot in the neck, we would see immediate devastation on the neck, and it wouldn't really be able to cause much movement in the shirt. Certainly wouldn't blow his necklace up and over his head.
And for those, Yeah, for those who don't know exactly that movement that he's talking about, it's quite dramatic. You can describe it maybe even with the shirt that you have on.
Yeah, I have the magnet clasp on. So basically, the magnet clasp raises and touches his face almost, and then the opposite side of the shirt raises up next to his cheek, pretty much covers his half his face. And then his shirt balloons all over. You can see the freedom text. It raises like a McDonald's arch, across his chest. And all that precedes in any appearance of the neck wound. So, it's just, you look at forensic science, it's just impossible for that much energy to be transferred into the neck, especially that's the zone to the neck. It's basically full of arteries and vessels, vascular tissue full of pressurized blood. If a bullet strikes it, you're going to have blood immediately going everywhere. The high speed of the bullet is going to cause the blood to turn to small droplets that are basically like a cloud. And we didn't see any of that. And then the wound itself has a rectangular shape, and it has a very delayed bleeding. It's 43 or 0.43 seconds from when the shirt first moves, from when we see the first appearance of the neck wound, and it's almost a full second before we see active blood coming out of the neck. So it's just not physically possible for a bullet to enter that area with that high speed and not have blood immediately start to, in all directions start to come out.
So all of those things just kind of piqued your interest. You didn't initially come up with this mic theory though, right off the top.
Yeah. The first video I saw what I thought was a silhouette of a soft armor, and, a chest shot with soft armor on that. The movement of his shirt made a lot of sense to me, because soft armor catches like it deflects the bullet and kind of like a catcher's glove. It'll make like a cupping shape around the bullet. And so all the edges of the soft armor pull in. So you'll see the outline of the armor as it deflects the bullet and captures it. And I thought that's what I saw. But like I said, it didn't take me long to realize he didn't have armor on. And that left me with even more questions, like, why is the shirt even reacting the way it was if he's supposedly shot in the neck? And then the first witness I saw was the guy in the red Trump hat next to his wife. He says that Charlie was shot in the chest, and there's just like, that just always stuck with me. I feel like the first accounts, eyewitness accounts, they always like have a little kernels of truth to them.
Mm-hmm.
So that always had me kind of like suspicious. And the more I looked, the more angles that came out, the more I was convinced that, something wasn't quite right, because the quality of the videos kept getting higher and higher, so that we were able to see more and more detail. Every video that came out, I was able to kind of decipher more of what actually happened.
You are getting a lot of love in the comments right now, including from Tough Gemini 337, who said this dude should be the chief investigator. So props to you, Jon. You really have done a ton of work. We saw that strange movement with the shirt. And then I know you and I, for a couple of months now, have talked about some of the crazy different movement that we also saw in the back. What do you make of that while we're talking about shirt movement, and then we'll get back to, the nitty gritty of yours.
The back of the shirt is really kind of still a mystery to me. The necklace obviously moves really fast. So, and it's forced down before it kind of catapults over his head. And his flesh for some reason is kind of like he's shrugging. You can see it's like pulled up. So, I still don't have a solid explanation of what causes that, other than just the shock wave. And, the shock wave makes a lot of sense, because if you look at even the extremities of his body, you see that shock wave travel through his body. You see his hair kind of like fling up and down, and then the ring comes off his finger. And then like his whole body, when you look at the maps, his whole body raises up, out of the chair and then back down. So there's a tremendous amount of energy that went through his body in a very short amount of time. So I think that's how you can kind of explain a lot of the oddities of the event just by the amount of energy that was kind of dispersed in a very short period of time.
So let's get into it. You've clearly done a ton of work on this. Can you talk about, there's going to be people who are watching right now who are everything from hearing this theory for the very first time to some who have I've heard from people who watched our initial interview 5 times over. So they've really invested a lot of time into learning more about what you believe. So tell us, how is all this done in
Um,
theory?
so the at first I just followed the energy. I was just that amount of energy, it has to have a source, and the three things that we can track and move, they all have to be tied together. They all moved around the same time. They kind of all moved in opposite directions. So I just kind of focused back from that, traced that energy back to its very epicenter where it started, and that kept leading me to kind of this area where Charlie's mic was mounted, much like the clip on my shirt, and it all seemed to center around here. His necklace was draped right around through this area. His shirt ballooned on the opposite side here. The text of the shirt rose up from there. So I was left with what caused this energy. What could be this dense of energy, to cause this reaction and break a necklace and it flying up and over his head, and then send shrapnel across his chest. And then it wasn't even a year before the event with the Lebanon pager attacks, and so that kind of like high energy explosive hidden in batteries that kind of opened it up to me. It's like, all right, so now we have a target opportunity. You have a microphone that's not on Charlie's person most of the time. It's handled by third parties. It goes through airports. It goes all over the place, right? And then I found that video of them disassembling it. I saw how easy it was to pop the battery out. You don't even have to solder it. It's just a clip a new battery in, close it back up. It's still fully functional. And when I looked into the details of the Lebanon attack, those devices were used for almost a decade before they were detonated. So it's like the level of planning that could go into this sort of thing. It made me worried that there could be a lot of other devices that potentially have loaded batteries and people have no idea about it. They're just sitting in circulation.
Well, now you said that the original ones were in circulation for a decade. So that means that there's been at least, 10 plus years of time for them to make something that's much more efficient, that burns cleaner, and could be more devastating.
Yeah, absolutely. And then batteries, the technology of batteries have increased. So the potential to make a battery that's half the size but still has the same capacity is really easy. Like it happens all the time. So it's kind of like the standard. So you could replace a battery of an older device with a battery the same exact capacity and only have half the space taken up. So you have like a good amount of space that you could put explosives and any other devices you want, treated electronics.
While it still functions as normal.
Yeah, you would never know. They go through airport scanners. They can go by bomb sniffing dogs. It's almost undetectable.
And then how would the detonation happen?
And that's a tricky thing. And that seems to be, there's a variety of ways that you could do it, especially when you have a wireless device. Not only do you have the ability to connect to it wirelessly, but you have a microphone on it also. So you could have a certain frequency that you send to it. You could have, a wireless signal that goes to it. It could be on a timer. It could have a remote trigger. There's numerous ways that it could do it. The walkie-talkies that happened the day after the pager attacks, they still aren't sure how they detonated those. There was walkie-talkies that had the batteries on a charger that exploded. So it wasn't through the walkie-talkie wireless system. Like the battery itself had a detonator on it.
And the stuff that's put inside to create this charge, it wouldn't change the weight of, or would it change the weight or the feel at all? Like for Charlie, would there be anything that would feel different about the mic that time?
No, it would be undetectable. The weight would be the same. Functionality would be basically the same. It would, like I said, it would be really difficult. Even the Hamas purchased these pagers under suspicion. Like they ran them through airport scanners. Like they were looking for explosives and things hidden in them, and they didn't find anything. So, to have an unsuspecting consumer product, it's just there would be no way that you would know it.
That's quite terrifying.
For those who aren't familiar, can you explain kind of the shape charge and how it works?
So a shape charge is basically a directional explosive that uses the principles of acceleration through kind of constraining expansion through a small orifice. So you're in, a traditional explosive, it's just a radial force. It's going in 360 degrees. Where a shape charge, you're giving it a path, and then you're constricting that path and then opening it up. So you're creating a very directional jet, kind of like a much like how a rocket works. And so when that explosive goes off, instead of blowing up like a grenade, it's basically making a high speed stream of Mach 7 plus expansive gas. And then as it passes through what they call the cone, which is kind of like on a rocket where you have the heat shield, it's pulling materials off of the cone, and that's kind of like the aggregate in a water jet. It's just adding to the penetrating potential of the jet stream.
And your belief, or do you believe, how do you believe it was supposed to work versus how it perhaps ultimately worked?
Well, I think logically you would not want it to look like an explosive device, because then obviously that's a very sophisticated assassination. It would have to be a nation state. Not anybody could just pull that off. So looking at it logically, you would probably want it to look like something that you could pin on somebody, right? So we know the official narrative of a 30-06 impact. An amateur shooter taking a shot, from a cold bore under pressure. The easiest shot to hit would be center mass. So to me, in my mind, I always thought that it was made to replicate a center mass shot of a 30-06.
When you say center mass, meaning somewhere on
Yeah,
his
upper
chest.
chest. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yep. The largest space or literal target. But yeah, so then when the entire world sees this, neck injury on Charlie, then explain how you think all of that shook out.
Well, it forced a hard pivot in the narrative. So where it would have been very easy, I would have never looked into it twice if they claimed Charlie was shot in the chest, right? Everything would have been explained by that. The shirt movement, the microphone, the necklace. As far fetched as it could seem, it's all within the realm of possibility. But a single shot to the neck causing all that reaction is just outside of the realm of possibility. You just can't really. You can't. That equation just doesn't work, especially the order of the events, how they unfolded. So, I think that's why we just have a scramble of narrative shifts, and I think a lot of the information that was leaked on purpose, whether it was just to obscure the truth or try to create a new narrative outside of the possibility of it being anything other than a rifle shot.
So we have this question here. They say, please explain, is the microphone transmitter relatively thin? And if that's the case, how could shaped charge be planted into it?
That's a good question. And, if you look at micro shape charges, which is this certain type of shape charge, there's actually, government contracts for these shape charges, and they just fit inside of this device. So then it's not only possible, you take traditional literature of shape charges, you run the formulations that are in it, and the penetration ability and the wound that they leave, it would not only would it fit in the microphone, but it would create a wound channel that's almost identical to a 30-06 impact.
There are a lot of people who talk about that necklace, and it has a very interesting narrative that has followed after the fact. But can you talk about how the necklace plays into your theory?
So the necklace is kind of the key to it all. The speed of the necklace and the trajectory of it. It lifts up and over his head. So it snaps. So you have a continuous kind of chain that flies over his shoulder, and the kind of direction that it moves causes his shirt. That's what causes the shirt to lift up. The cross pendant basically gets forced like a pendulum across his chest and up around. So that's kind of like you have the explosive force going down into his chest, right? Because the way his mic was mounted was like at a 45, and it was kind of like in this shape. And the battery's on the back side of the mic right here. So as that case opens up, it lifts his shirt up, and then the shape charge goes off, which is going to put a jet stream down into his chest, and it's going to hit that pendulum, that pendant, and it's going to force it to go this direction. But it's only going to be able to go so far before it pulls on his necklace, and then it's going to, like a pendulum, swing up. And you see it almost come out of his shirt. But right when the cross almost comes out of his shirt, the chain breaks. So the slack is let off of it. And then you see it actually like the slack around his ear. That's why people thought he had like an earpiece on, because you see it actually like bend around his ear before it flies up and over the back of his head.
And it was a rather thick chain. And I think that's why some people had initially assumed that it was, tubing of some sort, perhaps, or even, yeah, there we go, right there. Thank you. Thank you, Matt. That it looked pretty thick.
Yeah, it looks like a big thick wire when you first see it. Like, and you can see how it pulls on the back of his neck. Like, it was a lot of force down on it before it snaps and snaps up. And that kind of explains the speed that it comes up at. Because as soon as it's forced down and it snaps, now there's nothing holding it from going down anymore. And that expansive force is at the tail end of it. So now it's just a loose end. And so you have this gas that's escaping at all areas that it can. And it's going to basically blow that necklace up. Not only is it whipping back from it being forced down and snapping, but then you have the gas that's escaping of his collars of his shirt that's going to push it up even more, accelerate it. It's the fastest moving object that I've tracked. It's faster than the shirt movement. It's faster than the magnet movement. So whatever put energy into it, it received it almost immediately.
Now, is there any chance that the pendant, the cross, something on the necklace may have also contained some type of charge?
Yeah, like I said, it's the fastest moving object. So either something put energy directly into it, or it had a lot of energy in itself. Like, the pendant itself, could have been, part of the charge.
Altered, tampered with, something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you see how it's directional, right? There's more force being dispersed on his opposite side of the mic and the shirt kind of reflects that. The shirt raises up way across here, where the shirt on this side expands, but it's more, secondary. Yeah. It's not nearly as dramatic as the movement on that side of his shirt.
Now,
yeah, it was just unexpected.
Now, for people who didn't see the first stream, can you kind of explain how you came to those conclusions and got those visuals and that kind of thing?
Yeah, basically, I had the idea was the multiple angles of the video, and then the text of his shirt. It was such a high contrast where you had the magnetic clasp. Once I figured out the brand and I knew the exact size of the magnetic clasp, then I could get the exact size of the text across his shirt. I could basically triangulate the movement of his shirt. So then I took those measurements, I plugged it into code, and I took the multiple videos, and that basically allowed me to track and map and get a pretty accurate speed and the amount of energy that was kind of dispersed. This is one of the earlier maps. And so this was like me developing the code as I went around, but you can kind of see how it's focused basically on the highest contrast areas of the basic movement of it. And you see the first movement of the center is down, and then it's up on the other side. So it's like you can kind of see the wave as it passes by. My first run of code, I was actually trying to figure out where in the where in his chest that he was shot. So that's kind of where I started. And as I started to get results, I realized that it was something tied to the area of his sternum, and the way the mic was mounted, it kept kind of mapping in this area, which, you know, when I saw the video, the battery being on the backside of the microphone, that's when kind of everything came together for me.
If we were able to see the autopsy, fingers crossed, someday we'll be able to see one that, you know, is authentic. But what do you think we'd see?
I think you would see massive chest damage. The upper chambers of his heart would probably be heavily damaged. I would expect probably some spinal damage too. It was from my calculations, it would be able to penetrate the depth of his chest. So, and then his physical reactions clearly show some brainstem and midbrain damage. So, you know, the hydrostatic shock wave from that impact would be able to explain all that. So it's, you know, not only do we have the kind of physical reaction of the things that are on his person, but his actual physical reactions of his body, like his arms going out and his hands going in, his hands being like clasped like he's trying to close them, and especially his legs. If you watch his legs, his knees go together and he actually lifts himself out of the chair slightly before he falls over. So all of that is classic forensic evidence that he had midbrain and brainstem damage. And then we have, you know, the security saying he had doll eyes when he hit the ground. So like all these things are lining up that he had massive brain damage, and that can't be explained by an impact to the neck. He would have to have, that bullet would need to hit like his C1 vertebrae for that sort of damage to happen. And the trajectory just doesn't match for that.
Mm-hmm. And it's been a moving target ever since. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, so just because a lot of people are asking this in the comments, and for those that are wondering why I don't have video, for some reason my video is acting up today. It was audio yesterday and in the last stream, and now it's video. So a lot of people are asking about, you're kind of talking about the pressure wave and the shirt moving and all that kind of stuff. So of course they're asking about the like pressurized air canister or something similar pushing a projectile. Is that something you've ruled out, or is that something you're still open to?
Yeah, this is another thing I have a lot of expertise in. I built and designed high pressure systems, so I understand like the amount of metal that it takes to house a high pressure gas. It would be pretty obvious. Like you wouldn't be able to have enough gas to propel the amount of energy that we saw. You need an explosive. You need a denser form of energy than compression.
It would be difficult to conceal that on his body and with a white shirt.
It would be, the problem is the weight, really, more than anything else. The size and the weight, it would just be really obvious.
I've seen someone ask several times, so I want to make sure that I acknowledge. They were asking, is this joules? Is this in joules? How much energy are we talking about?
So for the movement of the shirt, I mapped it at like 100, but that's excess energy, right? That's not energy. It's going into the shape charge. We're over 350 into the shape charge, and it's a very concentrated 350. So you're looking at 350 like in a 3 millimeter radius. So, you know, more than enough to penetrate flesh and turn it to liquid. Shape charges are extremely efficient at, you know, liquefying things. So flesh is a very low order of density, so it wouldn't have any issue, you know, traumatic damage almost instantly.
So what about the sound? How do we kind of rectify the sound? What would this shape charge typically sound like in this scenario versus what people allege that they heard?
Right. Kind of like the energy is very concentrated, the sound's also very concentrated. So you don't have like a radial blast of sound wave. It would sound a lot like a firework, and it would be, you know, people that were kind of in front of the shape charge. So on the opposite end of the jet, they would barely hear anything. where people on the side where the gas is kind of escaping, they would hear more of like a firework type of sound, like a crack.
And just so we're clear for people listening, I know you mentioned that you think there might have also been a gunshot, but some people were asking on X, is there a possibility that because the explosive can reach supersonic speeds for the feet per second, that it can move and that kind of stuff, is it possible that that was the supersonic crack that people heard, or do you still think there was a separate gunshot?
No, I'm convinced there was a gunshot. The gunshot just served too many strategic purposes. It gives you an explanation for the events that you see unfold. It gives you an acoustic cover, and it also ties the the assassination to the patsy, which would getting someone to just show up in an area is pretty easy. I mean, that's basically all you would need is someone to walk around the area, be seen on a few security cameras. You get a gun that's tied to them, you let a shot off on it. I mean, there's pretty much, not much defense that they could put up against that.
Yeah, I mean, even if the person, the patsy, whatever, was just merely placing a gun in the woods, and that was the extent of what they did, right? And then there was someone else who was up there firing off this decoy shot. It could be as simple.
Yeah,
You know.
as long as the weapons can be tied to the patsy, I mean, it's pretty much a case closed. They wouldn't even need gun residue on them. I mean, I think you could get most juries to if they had a video of someone that even looked like them, and that they could prove that they were close enough to be like, theoretically responsible for it, and it was their weapon or could be tied to them, that would be enough for most people to convict them.
Yeah, especially when the arrest didn't happen until 33 hours later.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then they just leak a bunch of information about them that, make people easy to pass judgment on them. I don't think there's anybody that got won over in Tyler's court by all the information they were leaking about him.
Right. Yeah, interesting how the narrative shifted quickly. The information released was quite subjective
Yeah.
in their favor. Oh, do you want to talk about? Let's talk about the little bits and pieces. What
Yes.
are the little the little black bits and pieces
Yeah,
that have?
this is something every video I've been hunting for fragmentation. I've been trying to find the actual device or circuit board. But there's such a high energy explosion. I don't think there was a lot left of it. But this is very telling because you have two different types of ABS plastic. You have the glossy type like that, and then you have some flat black pieces that are kind of scattered about on the edges of the trim of the seat there. And that microphone has both. So the outside shell is that glossy black, where the inside's more of a flat black. And the battery's directly behind that O. So theoretically, if the shape charge is hidden in the battery, that kind of glossy cover is not going to stand a chance. It's going to get blown to a million little fragments. And
No,
you
I
can,
had. Oh,
you
sorry. Go
can
ahead.
find those fragments in not only the floorboard there, but also on the table where Charlie was, the platform that he was seated on. There's some fragments on the table also.
Do you know? This was one thing that had occurred to me this week. It appears in that photo that there are no floor mats. And I thought that was kind of interesting. I mean, we're talking about a luxury vehicle here. Why would there not be floor mats in a luxury vehicle?
Well, it's after the FBI went through it. So I'd imagine, say that, that they were looking for the necklace. So I imagine they were looking for other things also. And, the floor mats being like a pile carpet, they're going to be a lot more difficult to get all the fragments out of. Kind of like the grass got paved over. It would be impossible to get all the fragments out of the grass. So I can
Yeah.
only assume if there were mats in the car, they would be taken as evidence.
Yeah. Well, let's hope they were taken as evidence and not just chunked out somewhere, and
No,
destroyed.
my thoughts on that. So that's interesting you say that. So say they took those because there could have been more stuck in it, little pieces that are easier to find.
Mhm.
But why would they leave behind what's there?
Yeah, it seems a little lazy to me too.
Yeah.
Like, why wouldn't you vacuum it up? But
Uh,
they just draped the necklace over it. Like I said, it just seemed like a kind of a scramble. I don't think that it was. I think if the neck wound wouldn't appear, it would have been a lot easier. And I think that's what they were prepared for. Because I don't think anybody would have been questioning anything, right? It would have just been open and closed. But there's just left with speculation now that we have like the odd events. If you have like the neck wound and then the shirt and the necklace, you can't really explain it all. So you can't prepare people for that. So they're kind of just left in operational scramble. And I think that's these little tidbits that we're seeing, the little sloppiness is from that.
Yeah, I wanted to call attention to that because whether the floor mats were removed potentially beforehand, maybe someone knowing what was going to happen going into the event, or that they were removed after the fact to avoid any additional evidence being, taken. Either way, I think it's interesting.
So now, John, I have a question for you. I don't know if you saw the videos I did with Kelly Kukul, where this random person, to this day, I have no idea who this person is. I don't know if they're an agent. I don't know anything about them. This person sent me some very extremely detailed information about what they thought happened. Part of what they sent me is these images here, and they kind of obviously zoomed in on it, but you can see these like fragments of pieces that were falling down. There's one here. I don't know if you can see that very well.
Yeah.
There's one there, and then there's a separate one here. And then there's, a couple other ones that are shown in different areas. But I was curious. I said, is there any way that black plastic, like we would see with the microphone, any way it can turn white when burned? It said no. But it did say some plastics can appear to turn white under intense pressure or mechanical stress. Is there any chance that shape charge could have turned some of it white, and that's what we see in those pictures?
Yeah, absolutely. And then you have the PC board too, like the actual circuitry of the device. When you break those open, when you snap a circuit board, it generally has like a white kind of like powdery residue because it's silicone. So, and then the hard kind of like square angles of it, that again, this kind of not a natural shape, right? It's not going to be like something organic, something cast, and the layers of that microphone, if you broke them apart, like if I took a hammer to one, that's basically what you would be left with, little fragments of right angles and shattered pieces on one side.
And just real quick, everyone, make sure you hit the like, make sure you subscribe, look for Kelly Raybon on Instagram, X, and YouTube. And she is officially monetized. We're just waiting for YouTube to actually push it through. So make sure you put some hearts or something in chat, show her some love. And then Jon Bray, I'll put his information up here again. Jon Bray on X, John Aaron Bray, Aaron Aaron, and same on Instagram. So if you want to reach out to them, show them some love. And obviously, John is here being very brave and sharing this information. And of course, this is just allegations. This is just research he's done. But some of the stuff he's done pulls together a lot of the pieces that other people didn't or weren't able to put together. So I just want to make sure you guys realize that. And also, any super chats that happen today are going to go to John as well. So if you want to support John, if you want to donate to him or send him money, you can contact him directly. But also, any super chats or anything you do today are also going to go to John. All right, go ahead. All right, so now I wanted to talk about, like, very briefly about Hibbs. So everyone, I don't know if everyone knows, this is Jack. This is Jack Hibbs. And this is the Calvary Church Chapel pastor. And he's very popular. I believe he's about 70 now. Now, Butch, his name's actually Burton, is supposed to be his brother. And Candace has some time.
What does it mean when we talk about separation of church and state? Here to discuss all of this with me is Pastor Jack Hibbs. He is the author of
interviewing that gentleman. So he's been around for a while. This was 5 years ago. So he's been, very integral part of TPUSA and the whole movement back then. And it's interesting because when you search for this Burton, or Butch Hibbs is the nickname, or at least that's how his brother refers to him, you don't find much. There's maybe the two photos you see from that day at UVU, and then this one other photo over here, which is him out shooting. And they do look like him, looks like the same person. So that's interesting as well. If you search, I use ChatGPT and Grok, and yes, I know you guys hate that. You say that they have no validity, but it is interesting that they couldn't find anything, especially for images for this person, except for the ones from that day at UVU. And then just a side note, looks like his father. It says over here, his name is Burton, but listed under the surviving children, it says Butch Hibbs of Orem, Utah. So he lives in Tennessee now, apparently, or maybe he has multiple homes. But I thought it was interesting that it was Butch officially, not Burton. So it kind of seems like Butch is his real name and Burton's his nickname. So coming over here, a lot of people were asking, do you think that possibly this guy, like Al Geist and other people brought this up, do you think that this guy is Mike McCash in disguise? So really quick, I want everyone who's in chat on all the different platforms, if you think that these two are the same person, the one on the left, that is Mike McCash. He is a very well-known Hollywood super like special effects guy, like out of this world, has Emmys and everything. The guy on the right, this is supposed to be Burton or Butch Hibbs. He's the brother of the pastor at TPUSA. If you think that they're the same person, put a 1 in chat. If you think they're a different person, put a 2 in chat. I'm very interested to see what you guys think. All right, so while you do that, we'll keep going here.
And for anyone who is joining us on X too, please reshare the space and feel free to come on over to YouTube if you want to see all the visuals, because we are diving deep on the YouTube side. But we appreciate all our folks on X as well.
Yeah, for sure. And you should be able to see the live over there, I think, if StreamYard is working the same way. But if not, yeah, if not, then definitely come over and check us out on YouTube. But I've had people like Jordan Henshaw. A lot of people know him. He's in almost every stream. The Charlie Kirk stuff. He's telling me to go to the school and check out all the work that Mike McCash does. And basically, I can't show it because it's very gory. And actually, let me share the right thing here.
And I see while you're pulling that up, I see someone talking about the teeth being different. You know, you have to remember prosthetic teeth. I mean, all of those things can easily be changed. So the interesting thing about Butch is that there are not many public pictures of him for us to get a point of reference of what he looks like on a normal day. So we're doing the best we can at this point.
Yeah, there's a lot of people thinking that they don't look the same, but this guy, what he does for a living, he literally does special effects to show blood and change the way people look and do really, really gore stuff like you would see in a horror movie from like Friday the 13th back in the day. That's what he does for a living, and he has Emmys in it, right? And I can't, like I said, I can't show it, but he has courses where he talks about the spray and the flow and bladders and everything to make it look the most realistic that it can.
Applying prosthetic necks. You know, I mean, it's fascinating. It is really I think you worked on Stranger Things, if anyone is familiar with that show. Yes. I believe that was one of the big awards that he won for, was Stranger Things.
So we have Techie Head. Thanks for the super chat. Mike McCash is the guy in the blue shirt that got interviewed. Look at the eyes. So now you can see here, this is a picture of Mike McCash kind of on, you know, fancy. And he has like these kind of crystal clear, I guess, blue. Would you call that blue eyes? So yeah, I mean, look at the eyes, but the other guy's wearing sunglasses. So it's kind of hard to compare that.
Yeah, I mean, really, between the beard, the sunglasses, and the hat, you know, we've got about this much of the face to work with. So, you know, we need to keep digging.
Okay, so now, having looked at all that, John, I don't know if you've seen all of that or put any time into that at all, but you have some of the most expertise I've seen of anyone on this topic. So based on everything you know and everything you've seen, the software that you've used to measure everything, looking at the blood flow and the fluid flow, looking at the chest movement. You said you possibly heard that like his chest was caved in and all these different things. How do you reconcile with the idea that maybe this was staged and Mike McCash was there in disguise as Butch Hibbs and somehow this was all faked?
Well, I kind of researched that through his physical reactions. The hardest thing to be able to act would be the immediate reaction to it. And either he was very well trained and, you know, is a very good actor, or it was an authentic, you know, kind of kill shot, because his posturing and his physical reaction and the way that he falls is just, I would have a hard time believing that he was just, you know, one-offing that, you know, first take, you know, nailing it like that. It would just be really, really difficult for me to believe. And the type of blood flow that we saw, it was just, it matched the type of blood flow and his physical reactions all match somebody that had, extreme trauma to the chest. And so either it was perfectly planned and, he nailed it, or we saw a real event.
So, yeah, I really wish we could show you guys the flow. They can see it on your X, right? The blood flow and the square shape and all that.
Yeah, X is the only place you can see it.
Okay, let me pull up those images that you sent me. Let's see, where's that at?
And while you're pulling that up, I'm just going to give a shout out. We see Baron is in the house, and he came through with a big donation for you, Jon. So
I appreciate
hats
it.
off. Yeah, absolutely.
Boom. Great show. Jon has been great. Yeah, Jon is awesome. And I hope you guys can work together and kind of dig into this stuff together as well. And obviously, if you guys don't, I mean, I'm sure everyone's already on Baron's on his YouTube and subscribed and all that stuff. But if you haven't, he does some great, he pulls great strings, right? He doesn't necessarily come out and say, hey, this is what happened. This is the exact theory. But he does ask very good questions. It gets people thinking. And like he said, he's knighted all of you to be official Baron Knights. So get out there and find some stuff and send it our way, or present it yourself if you have the means. Let's go ahead and I'm going to pull that thing up. If you guys want to continue talking, I'm going to pull up the images that you sent me about the square area for the neck, and I'll see if I can get those on the stage here shortly.
Yeah, this is really what opened it up for me when I started running the edge definition, just trying to catch, hard right angles out of fluid flow is very unnatural. So, the blood was so peculiar to me. I wanted to run analysis on it. The easiest analysis was running edge analysis. So it's basically going to put hard lines on anything that has a hard edge to it, which blood flowing naturally is just going to be, very round, fluid. Mm-hmm. So when I did start to see these images pop out, you can see there like hard right angle, rectangular shape, and then I mapped the size of it, and it was matching, both the potential size of the battery and the magnetic clasp. It was just the fact that you had the wound had a rectangular shape that mapped to the same size of both those objects, and now we see an object kind of like cascade out of the wound, and then it's followed by the heaviest bleeding. It kind of like put all the pieces together. Like the reason we saw delayed bleeding is because the object that caused the wound was basically plugging it. And when it fell out, we see the heaviest bleeding followed immediately after it. And that again explains kind of like the frantic search around the site. You see the videos of after the event, after Charlie's, toted away in the SUV, the security guys are kind of like combing the area, looking down at the grass, kicking it around like they were looking for something. And little things like this, fragmentation, the magnetic clasp, like all these are key details that would need to be, cleaned up, because if anybody found it and could test it for residue, it would blow the whole thing open.
That's what I was just about to ask. What all do you think that they were looking for? Because I mean, that was so odd. I have never before seen people be able to just walk around a crime scene like that. I don't care if you're security or whatever. Like, you are not a police officer.
Yeah. It was really odd. It seems like everybody on the security team was head down, shuffling their feet through the grass, looking around, and it was for a pretty big distance around the tent, but they never went too far away from the tent. So to me, I think they were just looking for fragmentation. I think that they knew that there could be pieces all over the place, and one of those pieces being found by somebody could blow the whole thing open. It's the same reason the SD cards got pulled, and we haven't seen any videos from those cameras that were closest to them, because those cameras would have caught the fragmentation. I mean, if I could run, my maps and those cameras, like there's no telling. I could tell you exactly, the amount of energy, where it started, like how much, charge they put in it, the type of injuries that he would have had. And we would have been able to track every piece of fragmentation. We're dealing with cell phone cameras that were, 30, 40 feet away, and we're still finding things in them. So it's pretty clear that they were put in the know that they needed to scan their area for every little thing they could, because they weren't looking for big objects. Like, you don't look for big objects shuffling your feet around. Like, they were looking for something small.
They'd been tasked immediately with looking for something
Yeah, they weren't looking for Charlie's killer, I'll tell you that.
That's or to see if there was another potential threat out there either.
Yeah.
Okay, so here's a super chat from Milton Sophie. Thanks for the super chat. Since they destroyed much of the evidence, would residue be left from charge on Charlie's chain or anything else?
That's a great question. That's always been my number one. Like, why wasn't the chain tested? Just for due diligence. Like, why wouldn't you test the chain? Like, it was obviously like at the center of the event. Like, it would have something to show you, and to the fact that they made it like a emotional center point of the whole event made me even more suspicious of it. Like, good, it's the fallacy of emotion, right? You tie it to an emotion, grieving widow holding Charlie's necklace that has a little blood on it, and then the New York Times article saying the medics ripped it off. Like, we didn't see any medics touch Charlie. They're talking about medics at the hospital. Like, it didn't make it to the hospital. It was supposedly found in the SUV. Like, the whole story of the necklace, it seems like a hodgepodge of just people scrambling to try to explain something that's not explainable by the official narrative. Like, the necklace is the single most important piece of the whole event. It's just the most suspicious thing to me, and I think that there's no way that necklace doesn't have residue on it. So the real necklace is either long gone, locked up somewhere, and we're seeing like a staged necklace, or just the fact that they won't even admit that it was broken and that the pendant and the necklace were separated. Like, somebody had to put them back together, reunite these two separated pieces to plant them somewhere. And then the way she's holding them, you know what I mean? Like, it's like, are you trying to hide the fact that it's broken? Or, it's just like a weird way the whole ordeal came out. The whole way the necklace is handled just makes me even more suspicious of it. And then we have the clearest video of the event, 60 frames per second, 1080p. Like, you can't deny that the necklace was blown up and over his head. Like, there's just no way you can. And they just won't address it, which makes, it just piles on to the suspicion.
There's so much symbolism, and then it almost does feel like we're being taunted in a way with some of these things too.
Now, do you think that, let's just say theoretically, the necklace, there was a replica, say one of the 4 prongs of the cross or something else, maybe one of the other pieces of the pendant were PETN or something similar, and they were painted to look like metal and be real and everything. And we know that his wife had the necklace the night before, so it could have been swapped out, right? I don't think it could have been modified that quick, but it could have been swapped out. Is there any chance that the stuff you're seeing, including the energy movement and the programs you've run, is there any chance that necklace could have been the source of this?
Yeah, it's right in the area. Like, it's in the exact same area. The microphone, to me, the reason I immediately gravitated to the microphone, because we had a working example of it less than a year before. But like you said, that was a decade-old event. Like, they've had so much time, and I can't go into it now, but I'll share with you later. I have something related to it where I have a suspicion that a lapel pin has been laced with explosives before and used to assassinate someone.
Interesting.
And there's pretty good evidence of it, compelling evidence to support that. So this wouldn't be a new thing necessarily. I think we have a working case of jewelry being kind of loaded with explosives before to assassinate a political figure. So
now the question I have with that is, if it was a necklace and we just saw that image that showed the squarish shape and the size of it coming out of the fluid, there's no part of the necklace that's that large, right? Would that kind of defeat that theory?
Well, you could you could still explain it. I think that you could still get the necklace could possibly, we know that the trajectory of the microphone, right? And it lines up perfectly with so energetically it's less likely, but it's still within the realm of possibility that necklace somehow, got caught or grabbed onto the microphone, because it's a hunk, right? It's a huge old 30-gram piece of plastic underneath the shirt. And if that necklace is moving at a rip like it was, it could grab it and cause that movement across his chest and fling a piece of shrapnel out of it. It wasn't a high velocity impact that hit his neck. That's why we see it so clearly. Like, it's not a blur. Like, it was just enough energy for it to penetrate and hit, those vital vasculars in his neck to cause the bleeding we saw. And that's why the bleeding was so delayed and the wound so strange looking. Like, you can almost see his flesh just slowly stretch out, you see the bulge on that side of his neck. Like, that's not like cavitation from a high impact. Like, you would need a high speed camera to really capture that. We saw a medium speed impact with a blunt object. So, I think both of those could be the energetic, it doesn't take a lot of energy to cause that. It was, and that's why you couldn't foresee it either. It was just a freak accident.
And if you look at, for example, like Dr. Martinson and Brandon Stabro and some of the other people that shot ballistic gel and shot those dummies, you see insane amounts of cavitation, but it does tend to be, it kind of goes in every direction, right? It's like 360. If you look at Charlie, it kind of seemed like it was on one side. On one camera, you really see it. On another camera, you don't see it so much. So that, I thought that was very awkward. So you're saying that's explained because it's a slower type of cavitation?
Yeah, we're a medium speed impact. It's, more like, somebody with a slingshot than somebody with a rifle.
Okay, so I'm just looking at super chats here. This is a good question. Donnie B, thanks for the super chat. Why was there no blood on the center of Charlie's shirt or burn marks, right?
Yeah, that's the burn marks are explained by the nature of the explosive, but the no blood kind of had me perplexed for a while. It took some research to really kind of be able to explain that. And it's the nature of the shape charge. You're basically charring the flesh, and then the acceleration of it. The wound on the outside is very clean. You wouldn't have much bleeding coming out of it, and because of that jet is propelling inside of them, most of the trauma is internal. So if you look at even what would be expected at the hospital, like, physicians would have a hard time distinguishing a shape charge impact from the size of the microcharge we're talking about from a rifle impact. It would look very similar.
All right, we have a question about what was ejected. So then what was ejected from the entrance wound? Like what I guess in your theory, what pieces do you think could possibly have caused that wound and what you see coming out of it?
The only two objects on the microphone that had enough density and were rectangular were the battery, the clip, and the magnetic clasp. So one of those three objects had to cause the wound. It explains the rectangular shape, the delayed bleeding, and then the object that's falling out of his neck, and then the trajectory. We know that the microphone was heading that direction. We know it had enough speed to just penetrate the neck, and we know we see it fall out later. So the only explanation, it has to be one of those three objects.
All right, we have another super chat from Mr. Turpin. Hey, Mr. Turpin. I'm thinking that Brian Harple had a remote control in his pocket to turn the wireless mic on or off when it was used to cause feedback. What are your thoughts on that whole, like the electrocution theory and like pieces of that? Like, what are your thoughts on that overall?
I just think that he didn't have a great view. He wouldn't really it would need to be timed well with the rifle shot. And he didn't seem to be paying a lot of attention. You know what I mean? And that's what was always my criticism of like a lot of the security team. They didn't really seem to be doing a lot of like scanning the crowd or looking at rooftops. There was a few of them that were actively doing it, but he kind of just seemed to be lollygagging around. He didn't seem to really be on task. Flood was more on task. Like, he seemed to be like in the know more than Harpool was. So, and then the timing of it's not quite right for me too. When I look at the timing, kind of like with the sleeve pull, like when you look at it at a glance, it looks like something, but when you look at it closely, the timing's just not quite right.
All right, and John, there's a lot of people praising you for coming out and being brave about this and everything. And of course, everyone, if you get a chance, go over to his social media. He's on X, Jon Aaron Bray. That's Aaron, Aaron. And on Instagram, Jon Aaron Bray as well. I think let's how about we talk about the Tennessee plant? Should we shift gears to that for a bit?
Yeah, let's transition into that. So, John, you want to launch into this? This was just 1 month after.
Yeah, so these people are actually contracted to make a device like we're talking about, a micro shape charge. So a shape charge that's, millimeters in size in both directions, high energy explosive, made to, breach doors or they don't specifically specify, attack soft targets, but it could very well, if it's small enough to to fit in a device. You could put in a device and attack someone with it. And they're one of the few people that would be able to have the expertise to not only manufacture but to handle the explosive, these high density explosives. And 30 days after event, that facility we're looking at, which was the facility that made those specific, micro shaped charges, it turns to dust basically. So it's the timing is beyond suspicious. And if there was any evidence in that building that could tie, them to that event, it's not there anymore. I mean, and 16 people lost their lives there. God bless them. And if they witnessed anything or knew anything, obviously they're not telling their stories anymore. What I found very suspicious was the plant manager was only 30 days on the job, so that the previous plant manager left just around the event. So it's just, there's too many layers of suspicion there. And from my research of trying to track down to see, if this previous plant manager's carried on in the industry, right? People change jobs all the time, but he doesn't seem to be anywhere. I can't really track him down. And then he has numerous addresses beforehand. It just, the weirdness just kept getting deeper the more I looked. So, at that point, if anything kind of like put my fear factor on, it was that event, 30 days after they blow a whole building up and 16 people. Like, if it was to cover up evidence, it's obviously that people they're desperate to keep this thing a secret.
And it was a small facility anyway, so it would be hard to keep this project under wraps, without just eliminating everyone.
Well, the way these contracts work too, like they keep these controlled substances, so these high explosives, like the inventory is tightly controlled. They have a certain amount that they do testing, destructive testing on set, but you keep such precise records, but there's a little delay in it before someone would catch on. Say a little bit of it snuck out, or they replaced it with some dummy. It would eventually get tested and they would get found out. So, if the event went on without a hitch, they could just replace it again. But the fact that there's going to be scrutiny on that kind of source, especially with them making the actual device, I think that it would give them more than enough motivation to decide just to scrub the whole place. And that's just basically what they did. I mean, there's nothing left. There's no evidence to be gathered there.
And the timing of it all, it was a very short window for this contract. The contract had just wrapped up, a couple of weeks before the event.
Yeah, it's beyond suspicious. Yeah.
Are you familiar with the RDX or the cyclonite?
Yeah.
So this comment here says, I think Barron says cyclonite sits in the soil a long time, so they didn't want anyone to test the soil either, in my opinion, and maybe that's why they paved over it. Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, the grass would have been impossible to clean. So like anybody could have gone, and if they did enough testing, HPLC could catch parts per billion. So there would be no way you would ever be able to clean it up. And there's enough unique chemicals in it that anybody with any good idea of what they were looking for, they would be able to find something of it. And, there's no explaining it. It's not something that should ever be there. So it would be a big red flag, if not just an outright proof of kind of foul play.
So if the FBI went back right now and broke up the concrete, would they still be able to test for it? Or is it a half-life? Does it break down really fast? Or what would you expect?
It would be there for quite a while, yeah.
Okay, interesting. All right, and then just this other question here, kind of along the burn under, the right nipple on the right side. Burn marks were on CK's body under the shirt. Barron has seen photos that he can't share. Can you explain how this theory with the microphone and the PET and all that kind of stuff, or the necklace, could coincide with that?
It could be bruising from hydrostatic wave. So I don't know if you've seen people get shot like with plate carriers on or body armor, even though they don't get penetrated, like the energy waves to their body, and it'll leave just black areas everywhere on the edge and it looks like they've been burned. It looks like they've been electrocuted. And I think that's what we're seeing. The shape charge was right on the minimum size that you could run. So it wouldn't have a perfect jet. So it would leave a lot of kind of force to the sides that didn't penetrate, that would cause some tissue damage also. And then you have the fragmentation from the device that could, cause small lacerations and things like that. So I'll be willing to bet we could get higher resolution images of them carrying Charlie off. We would find more and more evidence of it.
Yeah, for anyone that disagrees with the theory, that's fine, but make sure you're keeping it civil in the chat. We have no reason to be trying to put people down about their theory. I'm sure your theory, if you told us and jumped on here right now, we'd probably be laughing you off the stage. So let's be respectful, please. So people are saying their jaw's on the floor. Good job. Awesome job. You're a national treasure.
Everybody wants to get protection for you. They're like, what can we do to help you?
Protection fund like Candace.
Or they want you to lead the FBI.
No, thank you.
Okay, now this is a question. Would Charlie have singed hair? Would there have been like a strong smell from the explosive?
No, it doesn't burn. It's not like a hot. It's from just the sheer velocity so it's liquefying through velocity more than it's through heat or a brute force. So it like I said, it would be a very clean. Even someone that's used to handling and seeing bullet gunshot wounds, they wouldn't bat an eye looking at it and thinking that it was a rifle impact. And I think that's part of the design. I think that they probably tested it and designed it in such a way that it was steered to mimic it as much as possible, because it's just so clean. If that neck wound wouldn't have appeared, it would have been such a clean operation. Like nobody would have questioned it. Like, even the most suspicious people, we wouldn't be having these conversations right now if it wasn't for the neck wound.
There would have been there's no visible spark. I think that's when people hear charge or explosion or something like that, they assume there would be some kind of little light, some kind of smoke.
Yeah, you would have to have a high-speed camera to be able to see it. There would be some disruption, but there are a few camera angles that even I'm suspicious of that capture something like that. But they're not consistent. But even that can be explained. The shutter speed, each camera has its own unique shutter speed. Like, not every camera is synced up. So it's absolutely possible for a few cameras to capture kind of like a shock wave and other cameras not to catch it at all. Kind of like the shirt on the back. You got Cubs videos, 60 frames per second. It shows some expansion of the shirt on the back. And then there's another video that's, probably 10 feet to his right that shows a huge expansion. And it's 30 frames per second. And so you would think logically the 60 frame per second has twice as many frames. It's going to see more. But it's absolutely possible that their shutter speed was just slightly off of each other, and that event happened so fast that one captured it and the other didn't.
Can you address just, you and I went back and forth for the last couple of months about, is this video real? Is this photo real? And I really leaned on you a lot for helping me decipher and determine that. Can you talk about the amount of like fake videos that ended up making their way into the periphery, into the general public?
Yeah, the low resolution, low frame rate videos, just, I call them slop. It's just, you could take any video, put in the AI engine and ask it to change it and make it look this way or another way, and it'll do it. And if you just look at it from a glance, it'll look pretty convincing. But if you break it down slow motion, frame by frame, AI is so lazy. It'll reduce the amount of frames. It'll double frames. It'll, kind of put smooth textures on things, or just, it's just the little details is where it matters. And what I look for is consistency between angles. We have so many different angles of varying quality, but most of them are pretty good quality. And one camera is not going to magically capture a few frames that are different than the rest. Like, they're going to be pretty consistent between them. Like, you could have a frame or two that captures something unique, but for the most part, they should all be pretty identical. You should be able to look at them side by side and they flow the same pattern. You see the same details. Like, it's you're not going to get one camera that magically captures a big event that the others didn't. I mean, we pretty much have a 180-degree view of the event from all the different cameras that are available. So you can reproduce it to the point where, it's hard to fake even a single frame.
So everyone, make sure you hit that like And make sure you check out Kelly Rebon and Jon Bray on the social media. They'll be linked in the description, and I'll also announce them again here shortly. Now, John, I have a question for you, and other people have asked the same thing here. So when I initially did my mic explosion theory video, this was like over a month ago, I was trying to see if the trajectory from this side of the body would actually make it across and enter into his left side of his neck. Yep. And now if this is the pendant, that makes a lot of sense, because if that explodes, that piece could go up, and we know the pendant went up as well. Yeah. But now how would you explain that this could actually make a wound on the opposite side of the neck?
So we know from those front views that that trajectory matches, right? And I think most people's idea is that they think that it would just fly across and not hit. But if you look at his posturing, when he gets hit, he kind of like shrugs forward. His arms come up and he shrugs forward, and his shirt comes up. And so when you do that, the magnet actually will hit that area. And remember that flesh gets pulled out. So it just catches the area of his neck. And if you look at his shape of his neck as the magnet's moving across, like it's like he's shrugging, like his whole neck gets pulled up. And so when you do that, you'll notice that it almost makes like a catch right here. And I believe that it was just the right angle that it basically caught on that muscle, just like that. And, the indentation is just enough to capture it. And once one edge of that rectangular object captures, it's going to be, kind of like yaw it into the neck more. And if you look at frame by frame, you kind of see the shape of it appear as it goes on. Like it's not immediately apparent. It starts as just a very, bulging of the skin. And then you see just a slight area, almost pinking. And then you see the full rectangle kind of area on it. And I've replicated this with, the ballistic gel is good for replicating like the penetration power of a projectile, but the actual physical like texture, elasticity of skin, the only way you can really do that is like with pig flesh or bacteriocellulose. They use it to replicate surgeries. Tattoo artists use it to practice. And so I'm already producing bacteriocellulose for a different project. So I studied the thickness of human skin, and I produced bacteriocellulose to the same thickness of human skin on the neck, which is about as thick as your eyelid. It's one of the thinnest areas on your body. And placed that over pork flesh, which is, about the density of the muscles in your neck. And I mapped the speed of the rectangular object, the trajectory going across his neck, and found a device to basically launch something the same shape, same density into it. And I was able to replicate the exact same size of the wound. You get the same kind of delayed reaction from it and the bulge. So it's not only something that's probable, you can replicate it. It's not it's the rectangle object's very, you never know its trajectory, but when it does hit its object, when it does hit the surface of something, it usually leaves a flat rectangle shape to it, which I was surprised by. I was expecting it to hit on the edge majority of the time, but probably 70% of the shots they hit flat and leave a full rectangle shaped wound in the bacteriocellulose, and it looks identical to the wound that we see on Charlie's neck before the blood starts to erupt out of it, and kind of makes it where it's not visible anymore.
Do we have that video pulled in by chance?
I don't see that in the drive.
Okay,
No,
I'd be
from the last show. I didn't put it in.
I'd be happy in the meantime to pull it in.
I've replicated it, 6 or 7 times. I've slow-mo videoed it a few times. I've tried it from different angles. And it's pretty consistent as long as you get the only thing that's unpredictable is the flight path of the rectangular projectile. It varies wildly, but when it strikes, it's over 3/4 of the time it leaves a perfect rectangle wound in it, and it penetrates about 3 to 4 centimeters, which is about what I estimate we see on his neck.
Okay, it should be loaded in now.
Okay, let me see. All right. You have to play it on your side, I believe.
Oh, okay.
Let me remove this one and put.
Oh yeah, you have to add it to the stage. There we go.
There we
and
go.
You can talk us through it because this is the one without the sound.
Yeah. So basically, the bacteria cellulose is over the port flesh, and then I use the it's a hunting slingshot that I use to fire the rectangular projectile, which is the same size and density as the magnetic clasp. And you can see the kind of rectangular jagged shape that it does. And that's another example of it. And then, like I said, I've done multiple times. And when it strikes, 3/4 of the time, you get a perfect rectangular wound, 3 to 4 centimeters penetration. And it's just deep enough that, blood pressure would kind of force it back out. So, it kind of replicates everything that we witnessed that day.
All right. Now, are there any major pieces of your theory and some of the research you've done that we haven't talked about before we get into all the questions?
The design basically of the shape charge, the kind of the space constraints. So I ran pretty, precise calculations on that. It's right on the edge of what you would be able to fit in that device, but it absolutely does fit. So, not only do we have a working example of it previously being used as far as like sophisticated trigger and then, being able to load a device and not have the people know it, but the actual mechanics of the device are absolutely possible. The wounds that we see from the projectile, we just demonstrated that's possible. The big question is, like, we need more evidence of the chest damage, and I think that we're kind of getting towards that, where we're getting these higher resolution images of Charlie being carried to the SUV. We'll be able to see more and more of that type of physical evidence on his body, on his person. And I think that's kind of like the last piece. We have the fragmentation now. The only thing we're really missing is the physical evidence on Charlie himself, to kind of like put all the pieces together for it.
All right, I'm going to finish this poll here. So the poll question was, is the necklace the explosive device? So we have 80% saying no and 20% saying yes. All right, so I guess that would put the microphone as being the main focus then there. All right, so let's go ahead and start getting into all these different questions. And we have quite a few super chats and memberships and things like that for you, John. I'll weed out the ones we haven't already done. Let's see. Okay, so thank you, Koraru. I believe John 100%. The video doesn't lie. Thanks for the super chat. You covered this one. How many energy in joules? Is there anything else about that? Like, how many joules does it take to break the skin? Do you know?
For the neck wound, it only takes 120. So, and the shirt itself displayed about 100 joules of energy, and that's just wasted energy. So, the shape charge itself probably delivered somewhere between 320 to 350.
All right, Catherine, thanks for the super chat. How much would this equipment .ent, I'm not sure what that is, cost?
The explosives are expensive, but majority of the hardware to actually like handle the trigger and already in the microphone. So it's like the acoustic trigger, the timing, that model of microphone already has it in it. So, it's very convenient target. Really, the only cost would be the cone itself, the 3D print, which you're looking at, probably less than $100 in explosives and materials in itself. The rest of the cost is in the device.
Now, we are not telling you to go out and make explosives. We're just talking about theoretical situations.
Right.
All right. Thank you, Hotspot, for the 5 memberships. Okay, I think you covered this in the last stream, but not this one. What kind of wound did the exploding mic leave? A chest wound under the shirt?
Yeah, I've done a lot of research on this. So it would be, very similar to a rifle impact. The wound itself would be slightly smaller than what you expect from a 30-06. So as far as like the shape of the entry wound, but the wound pattern would be almost identical. The cavity, the depth, even to the point where it's going to leave copper fragmentation in the wound channel. So it would be really difficult if you weren't acutely aware of the possibility that it was a microshaped charge. You would be immediately convinced that he was shot in the chest with 30-06.
So this is just a question I just thought of just now. So if he has a security team, we have all these other people that could possibly be implicated in this. So say that they were expecting him to actually get shot, or they're expecting him to have a chest wound from this explosive. Now he has both. So if they're in on it, that would make sense, because they would know that, he was being attacked, and they would just go along with it. They would get him to the hospital. Maybe there's a, medical worker, someone that's like part of it, and they help him, hide the body and hide everything that happened. We know that the FBI took the footage, Candace says, so all that stuff could be hidden and saved. But now, say the case where the security team is not in on it, wouldn't you think they would come out and say something? Or do you think that they would be freaking out and being quiet because they think they're next?
I think it would be really easy to overlook. That neck wound would have your attention so much, stopping the bleeding from the neck wound, and the small round entry wound on his chest you could explain by a million different things. I think that in the heat of the moment, seeing that grotesque neck wound and the heavy bleeding, like, it would probably be really easy for them not to even notice that he had a small chest wound also.
And that could go back to that magic and diversion that Baron and Blake were talking about.
Yeah, right? That's a big diversion. I mean, that's going to get your attention.
All right. And then a lot of people are asking this: how can we have your back? Well, the first way is you can go over to his Instagram and his X and show him some love and subscribe and, watch his videos. He has a lot more in-depth information and some better explanations and things than we can get into in just this couple hours that we have here together. And then obviously, like I said, any super chats, any stickers, anything that is donated today, all goes to Jon. So if you want to help him out financially, then just do a super chat and we'll get that over to him.
Yeah, me and my wife run a small, manufacturing facilities too. So if you want to support us, we make, health conscious, alternatives, kind of the corporate slop. So, any self-care items that, that are full of dangerous petroleum, fluoride, we make alternatives to that. And those are available at bluemountainfarmok.com.
Let's see. Blue Mountain. What is that again?
bluemountainfarmok.com.
Okay.com. Let's see if I can pull this up here. All right.
What first got you into that while we're taking a look?
Basically, my wife has a lot of skin issues. So it was me just making products for her to try to, solve the issues we're dealing with. And then, and we live in rural Oklahoma. And, a lot of the health issues people deal with are really centered around the beverage choices. It's Dr. Pepper country, as I call it. So we've been making kombucha and fermented beverage for over a decade. So I kind of had the idea, if I could make these fermented beverages taste as good as these, commercial sodas, that we could probably make a big difference in a lot of people's lives, to kind of convert them over. So that's kind of been our approach, and we've been very successful in it. Oklahoma's been great to us, and we get great reviews, and it's, I know it helps, it helps our life, our health, but then we get to see our community kind of really benefits from it also.
Really cool.
Very awesome. All right, let me get back over here. All right. And as far as super chats go, unfortunately, StreamYard is not the best about sorting these. So it doesn't sort them by the amount and that kind of stuff. So I'll just say up front, thank you to everyone who's donating for Jon today. We'll go through as many as we can. And Jon, again, we thank you for being here. Awesome information. And if you want to reach out to him and you have more questions, he loves to debate on X. He'll be there to shut you down anytime you're ready.
Or I just like, a lot of this information is from people who corrected my wrong assumptions. So, it's anything, any idea you have it has merit to me. Like I don't belittle people. Like anything that you have to bring up, I'll go over it with you and try to make sense of it. And a lot of the times it
and you
helps.
make your code available as well, right? The like lengthy code for those who are interested in really taking a deep dive.
Yeah, I'm hoping that someone that is, coding whiz can take it and really work with it more. And as we get more, I'm sure there's more videos that we haven't seen. All it takes is the right angle and someone, working this code, and we could really, find something that could be the smoking gun, kind of really turn the thing around for everyone.
And a lot of people don't know this about me, but I'm a software engineer. I've been doing it for about 25 years. So I'd be more than happy to look at that, John. And I know a ton of people who are very, very, very extremely experienced in all aspects, including at NASA. They can look at that code and maybe help you out with some of that stuff too.
I would appreciate it.
We have Amerifane Picker. Thanks for the super chat. But why not say hit in chest, exited neck? Does that make sense?
Well, the neck's kind of an entry and an exit wound, so it's a tricky thing. So and he wasn't really hit in the chest as much as he was, there was trauma delivered to his chest. There wasn't like a projectile that hit him. It was just a energy. It's kind of like what got me started on it all was like energy doesn't lie. Like there's a certain volume of energy that was displaced under his shirt that can't be explained by a neck impact.
Just like go ahead.
If that was the case, right? And it wasn't this gunshot going through and doing the strange things bullets do or whatever the line is. Could either the EMTs on scene or the guys there who I stand by had an immense amount of medical training done anything?
Well, I think that the neck wound was secondary. Even without the neck wound, I don't think the trauma that was inflicted on his chest would have destroyed the upper chambers of his heart. And I think that's why we don't see as much blood as we would expect from, a neck wound that basically explodes, exposed jugular and, the largest arteries in the body. Basically, like we should have seen bleeding, heavy pulsating bleeding for, at least 30 seconds. And the reason we didn't see that is because I believe his heart was just completely, destroyed by the shape charge impact.
Yeah, because some people would say that there's a part of the heart that even after you die can still pump for a while on its own, but you're saying that whole system was destroyed.
Yeah, the from the areas that I mapped and the penetration depths that I estimate from that shape charge, the upper chambers of his heart would have been almost liquefied. So,
all right, let's see. We have Asunta Madoni. Just showing you some love. No message. I'm not sure if you meant to have a message or not, but yeah, if you send super chats, make sure you put something in there. If you just want to donate to John, that's great as well. Then we have Don B. Thanks for the super chats. Why was there no blood in the chest area of the shirt? We covered that. I guess you can do she sent you a gift here, so I guess we'll answer the question for her as well.
Yeah, it's the nature of the shape charge. Basically, it's like you have a high speed jet cauterizing and pushing any liquid that could escape. It's just pushing it inside. So majority of the trauma is going to be internal, not external.
All right. And then we have Techie Head. Yep, we looked at that. Look at the eyes. And that's one thing for anyone that's looking at that and still believes they might be the same person. See if you can find, like I said, I looked around. I could not find a picture of Burton Butch Hibbs besides the 2 or 3 that were at UVU that day and one where he's standing with the gun. I can't find images anywhere else. If you can find some, please send them my way. All right. And then we have Real Baron Podcast. I don't know if you're still on, Baron. We appreciate it. Great show. John has been great. And of course, go check him out. Hopefully, I think he said he's going to be off the next couple of days, enjoying time with his family and his kids and everything. But he might be back on Friday. So make sure you go catch him over there. Milton Sophie. Since Chile, they pretty much destroyed most of the evidence. Would there still be residual left on Charlie's chain? I believe we did answer that question. And you said that yes, absolutely.
If it's the same chain, right?
Right.
And that's the question.
And I believe Baron covered this too. Maybe you know more about this, John, but I believe the chemical causes seizures and other major health issues and can kill you. So it's not something that would just be casually carried around by Erica if it was the same chain. Let's see. Holly Harness, Merry Christmas, John. And everyone, Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. Hopefully everyone has a nice, safe, eventful, I guess, break all the way through New Year's. Fascinating research and investigating you have done. Thank you for putting this out there, searching for the truth. Susan Smith, thank you for sharing with us. This tragedy must be solved. Thanks for the super chat. We have another one. Just thank you, John. Keep up the good work.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Tamara Wingett. Trying to see if there's any actual questions in here.
Everyone's praising your tallow cream. I don't know what the tallow cream is all about, John, but geez, you have got some big fans.
Yeah, we've worked pretty hard on it. It's been a long time coming. I thought my wife was crazy when we were going around town trying to find beef tallow, and we cleaning it up and cooking it in the house was a trying time. But we've come a long way. Like the same amount of research I put into this, I put into all our products. So it's a labor of love for us.
You're a mad scientist.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Kimberly Hodgins Smith, thanks for the super chat. John, what help can we gather to help investigate?
Just, keep looking for little details. A lot of these things that I bring up are things that people are pointed out to me. Like I don't catch everything. A lot of the times I just, it's just a regular person that finds something in a video or has a picture that something I've overlooked. So it's been a collaborative effort. I didn't do this by myself. It's literally been, between the people insulting me and calling me retarded, there's an equal number of people that help me a lot and show me things that I missed the first time.
And for every person that you see on social media, there's about 50 or 100 on X and places like that who are not seen, who are not in the public limelight, who are researching this stuff and providing information every day.
Yeah.
So,
and every eye helps. Everyone has a unique perspective. You're going to see something that someone else doesn't. Like, even if you don't know anything about the subject, like, your perspective matters.
Noble Price, thanks for the super chat. The expansion from the cavitation of his tissue is not something from a squib or a fake neck. The energy released to his body would have caused massive damage. Now, is that kind of like the chest caving in and all that stuff that you were hearing about initially?
Yeah, the internal damage to his chest would have just been, it would have been devastating, gruesome. And that's kind of like the New York Times article, the first release of that. They talked about the gruesome wound. But to me, the neck wound's not that gruesome. It was gruesome in its bleeding, but when the bleeding's gone, it's pretty clean. Like it looks like a bruise. It's just a square wound. But that chest wound would have been after initial effects of it, it would have been gruesome.
All right, let's see. We have Julie Pruitt. Thank you for the super chat. Big thank you to you, John, for this massive piece of the puzzle. Praying for you all. We have Laura R2255. Thanks for the super chat. Your work is brilliant, and I love the calm way you're able to articulate your point. Thank you for your diligence. And I have to agree. You are very calm. You share it very clearly, and you use language that people can understand. And you seem to be very confident in what you're saying, and like it's well researched, and everyone appreciates that.
Thank you.
Ferguson J, thanks for the super chat. Angie, if they wanted him dead, this is a good question. Why disguise whether it was the mic or a gunshot?
Yeah, the public nature of it, I think that it serves a function. So you look at the kind of the decisive nature of the narrative after it. It was an opportunity to create a political division, and then you look at what they've been able to do after it, and it kind of like it's a psych op. So it's not just about killing Charlie. You get to kill Charlie, and then you get to create a narrative afterwards that has a goal, an intended goal. And if you look at kind of the events unfolding and how things are playing out, it gives you an idea of what their intended goal is. Because regardless of how the assassination went, they're going to follow through with what their intended goal was. They're going to want to reach their objective. And I think if you look at what they're doing and their actions, it gives you an idea of the motivations of why they took, the risk to assassinate Charlie in such a public manner.
Yeah, makes sense. Make sure you guys hit that like. That like is the only thing that tells YouTube that you like this. All right, let's see here. BJ Hodge, thanks for the super chat. The autopsy should show a wound in the chest. That's a question.
Yeah, it absolutely should. But historically, if you look at these type of events, like it's the first thing you do is you get a medical examiner that's compromised or in the know or in your pocket. Like it's just kind of like the MO of it, because it's the last kind of story of the event. We know what we're told. We know what we've seen, and then the last thing that people are left with is what this medical examiner says in the autopsy. So, it's something where you have very few people involved. There's usually not a lot of outside eyes that see it, and it has a lot of, not much scrutiny put on it. So it's one of the easier things to kind of, if you are running a conspiracy, to kind of, control.
In fact, if we do think back to what Brian Harpole said publicly in the Sean Ryan Show interview, he recounts when Mikey McCoy, I guess, says that he's on the phone with JD Vance and turns to Brian and says, he's the vice president's asking me, what do we need? And Harpole says, an autopsy. We need an autopsy. I just that kind of makes my skin. It makes my skin crawl.
Why do you need an autopsy? Why is that such a? Why do you need the
You're
vice president
literally still in the hospital. Why are
Yeah.
you already thinking about an autopsy?
Another thing that always bothers me is how they knew Charlie was dead so fast.
Yeah.
Like the audio video guys doing so they
Carol,
killed
his
Charlie.
selfie.
They killed Charlie. Like if he's your friend, you hold out hope that he's alive till it's till the day of the funeral. Like you don't want to believe it's real. You want to believe he's alive. For them just to accept right off the bat that he's dead, not even take a second look. Oh, he's dead. They killed him. They shot him. Like that's just so suspicious. And it's the very people that are around him that had the access to this device that would have been able to be complacent in this conspiracy are the ones that were so sure that he was dead right off the bat. And that's always kind of struck a nerve for me.
All right. StreamYard told me I can turn my camera back on. Hey, everyone. I've been here the entire time in disguise as a logo. All right.
It's kind of like Santa, is he there? Is he not there?
I hear a voice.
He sees you either way, but we may not see him.
All right, Noble Price, thanks for the super chat. This is interesting. They need to identify everyone who walked in the area because they need to test the shoes for trace amounts.
That's a great point. Again, like this type of information, like people just think about things differently, but that's absolutely, those security guys walked over that place so many times, like their shoes would have traces of it. There's no doubt about it.
And the guests too, the attendees. I mean, there were so many people there who we could only hope that maybe someone could still have something on their shoes.
And the construction crew.
Yep.
I mean, would they have gotten it on their hands? Did any of them get sick?
Right. Yeah, that's a good point. Like they would have been exposed to it for sure.
All right. Techie Head, thanks again for another super chat. Let's see. Mike McCash was shown on Barron's program, but Barron didn't say it was him. Guy claimed to be Eric. Blue button-up shirt, glasses, and roller hat. Air compressor company. You can see his eyes are the same. Hibbs is behind him. Okay, so you're saying it's two different people. Okay, interesting. So you're saying they're both there, basically, is what it sounds like. All right, Sean Funfair. Thanks for the super chat. Great work, John. Merry Christmas. Let's see, Z-Spot ATX. Since UVU said the paving renovation was already planned for weeks, months before, that would be a mad coincidence if they weren't in the know. Merry Christmas, everyone.
I think we've kind of disproven that part because at least for one of the guys, I don't know if he was I believe he was a subcontractor, but had said that he was called up at the very last minute to get involved. So,
and you worked on a Sunday in that part of the country. They don't work on Sundays.
Exactly.
So
I believe there's some folks in the chat who were struggling with the poll. So I don't know if I can't see the poll, but maybe you want to take another look at it.
I think it's the wording. That's definitely something I need to work on because I'll ask a question and they're like, well, you should have put a third option as plausible. So I promise I will work on that. I will get better at polls. I'll study them and see how you're supposed to write them. All right, let's see here. Connie LaCroix, thanks for becoming a channel member. Same with Kite Surfer and David Neal. Appreciate all of you. All right, here we go. Cora Rue, thoughts on when the government got involved. So if this was allegedly a government type of setup, when do you think this would have been? How long would this be planned, considering Charlie's been doing this for quite a while?
If it's government involvement, government is slow. So I would say that it's probably months, if not many months in advance. And working in sensitive things in the past, you would be surprised on the level of scrutiny that can be placed on a person just by saying the wrong thing. And the pressure put on people around them to stay quiet. Like you can have people say things to you that will make you question ever mentioning anything around the subject before. It's not even a case of them directly telling you that you're in danger. It's just their tone and the way they say things. When you're dealing with people in government, and especially people in powerful positions, they have a way of letting you know that there's amount of pressure that can be put on you that you won't be able to withstand.
I would venture just some pure speculation here, but if you think about even, into last year, and we think about how people were picked for the FBI director and the deputy director and things like that. I mean, the way that the FBI swooped in to get immediately involved and take control of something that they, in theory should not have taken control of. Charlie was not an elected official ever. This was one person shot by one other person. And that and they clearly have already said that they've refused to or even blocked looking into foreign involvement. So
yeah,
and that came from what's his name, that Special Forces Delta Force guy that just did the interview recently, saying that he knows lots of people high up that are getting blocked by the FBI.
Yeah, but it had been out even prior to that, though. Yeah. Yes, but that was just the latest buzzing, I guess, of that part.
All right, I want to make sure you hit the like button. It's the only thing that makes YouTube know that this is something you want other people to see as well. And make sure you check out Kelly Raybon on Instagram, X, and YouTube. And check out Jon. He is here on X, Jon Aaron Bray, Aaron, and on IG on Instagram. He also has his website. Jon, do you have that linked on your X or anywhere else?
Yeah, it's on my X and my Instagram.
Okay. If you want some, I guess, what do you call it? Like healthy beverages and
self-care.
Yep. Self-care. Okay. That works. All right. Crystals Malin. Could a magnet from a magnetic lozenge in the mouth cause the flight path to inject in his neck?
Probably not. Magnetics, they don't have that far of a reach. It would take quite a strong magnet, and it would be really dense. So I've had this since this happened. I've gone pretty deep on magnets. So I'd say it's probably unlikely. I think it was largely just shrapnel from the energetic kind of happening to the shirt underneath the shirt. It's just like I said, it was a freak accident. They probably tested it 100 times and never saw anything close to it.
All right, Catherine, thanks for the super chat. Thank you, Jon, for such amazing and thorough work. Mystic Maverick, thanks for becoming a channel member. Jessica Judith, thank you for all you do. That's for Jon. Absolute results. Do you believe Mitch's identification of Harpole and Erica Kirk at Fort Huachuca on 9/8? Do you believe, well, let's do that question first. So do you believe in the Candace Owens Mitch story? Have you followed that at all?
Yeah, I've seen it. And I don't like to get involved in, like, I have a hard time even keeping track of all the names and everything. Like, I'm really I'm more of a gears and mechanics type of thinker. So like, I really don't think of the event outside of like the inanimate objects involved in it.
All right. And do you believe Tyler Robinson will be Epsteined before the trial?
Yeah, unfortunately, a lot of my motivations were to, attempt to possibly, prevent him from being, assassinated, or I guess I don't know what you would call it if he's innocent, but yeah, I believe that it's a very small chance that he'll ever be free, and probably a pretty solid chance that he's going to be executed.
All right. And do you have a working theory on Thomas Crooks from Butler, Pennsylvania?
That event taught me more about psyops than anything else, and kind of like what to avoid. So it's, again, that's just another government. The more they get involved, the more the narrative gets twisted, and we're left with nothing but questions. It's just another example of of how citizens are going to have to do their own investigating to come up with any truths, because the government's never going to give it to you.
All right. And again, I apologize. There are so many super chats for Jon that I don't know if we're going to be able to get to all of them. And I'm trying to get to the questions, but we appreciate everyone that is sending money for Jon. Mystic Maverick, thanks for the super chat. Jon, you convinced me 2 months ago. If the plan was to simulate shooting Charlie in the chest, would they claim there was an exit wound or not?
I think that they could get away with saying that there was an exit wound with a shot to the chest. I think, they're already stretching their excuses to explain the neck shot, and a lot of people are buying it. I think that those similar theories or explanations used for a shot to the chest would fly with most people. They wouldn't question. I wouldn't question it. I would think it would be possible. Bullets do weird things, right?
Magic bullets.
Magic bullets.
Shauna Ware, thanks for the super chat. No Coiner. It wasn't until the week after Jon Bray put out his theory that the TNT company in Tennessee exploded. Interesting.
Yeah.
Bill Barron showed Google Trends from Israel and DC.
Yeah, I do. It does weigh on me about that, actually.
Yeah, and I mean, of course, if there's anything was related, clearly not your fault, right?
Yeah.
They're doing nefarious things behind the scenes, allegedly, so that would have nothing to do with you. But you're onto something if that's what happened, right?
Yeah, but I still feel for those 16 people.
Level in. Sounds great. As always, tip the hostess as well.
Hey, that would be nice. I'm waiting.
Silver Moon Alpha, and she did get monetized. So
I'm not monetized yet. Quit telling people
oh no,
that.
you're monetized. You're monetized.
No,
It just has to go through. Oh yeah. Silver Moon Alpha. Very brave, Jon. Much love to y'all. God bless. That is a sizable super chat. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Susan Smith. So tired of our government. We employ lying and treating us all like fools for their own interests. Silver Bluff. Thanks for the super chat. If we take the theory that this was set up to protect Charlie, fake death, would the explosive be small enough to not hurt him? So this would be in the case that he's faking it. Then special effects artist created the blood spurt, and was Higgs to get after reactions after?
All those things are possible, but I would say that, again, if that was the case, then Charlie deserves a reward because he nailed it. There was not a detail that he didn't miss. So the preparation, if that is the case, the preparation was to the point, and he hit every detail that he needed to hit. And in my heart of hearts, I hope it's true, but I think that it's probably not the case.
Now, with the wound itself, the fact that you saw something go in and out, would that debunk that altogether?
I think you could create that too. I think that if you were going to do a squib, a prosthetic neck, you could absolutely do, both the trajectory and the object falling out, and it would be really convincing if that was the case. So if that's, hats off to him if that is the truth. They did an excellent job.
All right, we have Zesh Tech Sharon sending big love from Wales. Welcome. Have been thinking this was some sort of low frequency pager type weapon. Great to find a wizard who can expand on this theory. Love to everyone. Rest in peace, CJK. Jenny, thanks for the super chat. Test the shoes of people who walk near the tent. 100%. Yes.
Yeah.
Oscar Bravo. Thanks for the super chat. There was no hole in the shirt. Why would they use the mic to fake a shot to the chest and forget to fake a bullet hole in the chest?
The hole in the shirt is such a minor detail. You wouldn't be able to notice it. Even people in the hospital, they get shot, they have a hard time finding the holes in the shirt. I've had a firsthand account of a friend that had 6 holes in his shirt, and we didn't know it. It wasn't until it came out of the laundry and started to fray that you could notice it. The holes are quite a lot smaller than the actual bullet itself. In a jersey knit, especially, it would be a tiny hole. It would be really hard to notice.
All right, Shane Funfar, thanks again for another super sticker. African Violet. Well, Jon reached out to Tyler's defense team with the research he's done. Let's see, how well do we all get this information where it needs to go? Okay, so how can they get the information to you, and have you reached out to Tyler's defense team?
I've reached out to everyone and nobody responds. I gave, like, from day one when I kind of pieced it all together, I reached out to everyone I could find and I got no response. FBI at all, whether it was, I knew it was a fool's errand, but I went, I felt like this was my due diligence to at least attempt to do so. But yeah, I have, and I've heard nothing back, and I wouldn't expect anything different.
All right, kind of back to the beginning over the top. Thanks for the super chat. What tipped you to consider this scenario?
It was really the maps. I was trying to map to see where in the chest he was shot, because the original code I made was me assuming that he had a soft armor on, so I thought I could follow the deformation of the soft armor and kind of get an idea where the shot was, and the maps kept mapping to kind of like where the trajectory of where the microphone was pointed. It was just an odd way that the microphone was set on his chest, and it kept mapping from the different angles of camera to that area, so I just couldn't deny it anymore. And then that led me down the whole Grim Beeper Lebanon attack, and that's when all the possibilities came together. Like the device became pretty apparent that not only could you hide that, but it's been done less than a year ago. So,
and you've been refining this over and over again. So as you found new information, you've kind of molded and tweaked and ruled some things out, correct?
Yeah, I'm not dogmatic at all. I don't hold on to things. So as soon as I get new information that leads me to believe otherwise, like, I just put it to task, and it's all about getting the pieces that fit to me. It's not really about like trying to own it. I'm not trying to be like the storyteller or the narrative driver or the bastard to this theory. It's literally just about finding the truth for me.
And it takes us amplifying voices, like Jon's, who he's literally putting in work all on his own, no benefit to him. And I just truly believe that he's got a heart of gold. So thank you for sharing it.
Now, Jon, did you need to grab water or anything? Or are you good?
No, I'm solid.
All right. We'll keep going here. We have David Neal. Great show. I thought the videos were blocked on X, but I was wrong. Thanks.
Yeah, X has been great. I mean, Grok has been great. It's been, like I said, the other engines have been very difficult to work with. Chat GPT won't even answer a basic question for me anymore. I'm pretty much shut down on that. Claude and Grok have been my main tools of analysis, and most of that is not like asking general questions. Like I find technical documents, I feed 4 or 5 technical documents on a subject to the AI engine, and then I asked it specifics about it. So it's people can knock AI, but it's like a genie in a bottle. It's only as good as the question you ask it.
Yep. 100%. Crow Culbertson, thanks for the super chat. Readdress where Jon thinks the explosion was triggered from. I'm not sure if you mean triggered on the body, like where it blew up from, or who remotely triggered it. I'm not sure, but
yeah, I believe that logically, for the operation to be successful, it has to be timed correctly, and you have a very convenient trigger in that you have that Rode Pro microphone. The reason that it's to Pro and not the Go or the other, models they have, is the Pro has a very precise timing mechanism in it. So you can, to the millisecond, time it with frames on the camera that it's recording the audio for. So you have a device that has a battery that you can put explosives in. You have a chipset that can time to milliseconds, and you have a microphone that's available that can, precisely hear a supersonic crack. So in my mind, the most logical solution would be to have that supersonic crack trigger the explosive, and then it would be almost perfectly timed with the sound wave. When it arrives, the device would be already detonated, and you would have a cover for the sound. You have an explanation for the energy that you see, and then it ties to the patsy in this rifle.
Mystic Maverick, thanks for the super chat. Could more than one person have detonated the microphone redundancy? Thank you, Jon, Trigger, and Kelly. Merry Christmas.
That's a good point. Yeah, you could definitely have someone else. Even the trigger man on the rifle could have had a detonator. It's a wireless device, so it's like you have so many opportunities for someone to have a means to communicate with it. So it could have been, an acoustic trigger with a manual, backup, or a manual with the acoustic backup, either or. But I think for the success of the operation, you would have to have it timed perfectly. Like if it was mistimed, especially after the Butler event, there was so much analysis on the audio of it that I think it would have been fresh on the minds of the conspirators, and they would have made sure that not only was the audio tight, but it would be very difficult to make anything of it. And I think that's like the rifle sound being played over the PA speakers. It just muddied the waters. It makes it even more difficult to kind of get anything of definition out of it.
All right, we have faith over fear. Someone commented on a post that a student collected dirt or grass from the event. Did you see that comment?
That's interesting.
I wonder if it's from that specific spot. But yeah, I had not heard that myself. Have you heard that, Kelly?
I have not heard that, but that's mighty interesting. Makes me want to take a trip.
Yeah, if you want to send a link or something, that'd be great. Thanks for the super chat. Heather Perry, great solid work. Keep it up, John. The Taste Full Tea Totaler. That's an interesting name. Do you think that perhaps the guy who was originally speculated to have the palm pistol, so I guess the brown shirt guy, actually had a detonator?
When I first saw that, I thought it was possible, but if you look at the timing of it, it's actually, that angle is kind of deceiving, because you're looking over his shoulder, so you don't see a lot of the shirt movement, but the shirt precedes him kind of like pulling on his shirt sleeve. If you sync it with the front angle, you can see that he's like a half a second off. So I think it was just coincidence.
So you don't think he's involved then?
Well, that's a different story. I think he just serves no purpose for where he was, and he was just so gazed at Charlie the whole time. And if you look at his physical reactions, the way he has his hand on the rail, it's like he was preparing for it to happen. And when he sees it, he's not that surprised. But when he sees the blood start to erupt, you actually see him like mouth something. And then when he gets over Charlie's body, like his reaction was strange. It was different than the others. Him and Dan Flood, to me, have the most suspicious reactions to getting over Charlie's body. Dan Flood cuts on his metaglasses, which is like, what purpose does that serve? And then the way Dan tosses him to the ground, like, oh no, everyone's seeing this blood come out of his neck. Let's get him on the ground quick.
Throw him to the ground,
yeah, the guy's like doing this stress grin over the top of them, and it's just not an honest reaction. You can see some of the security guys that were actually like tending to him, like they were shocked when they heard the shot, and they were scared of another shot. Like and a few of them didn't have that reaction. Like there was no fear of a follow-up shot, and then they acted like they were more surprised than like scared, and didn't seem to be concerned with trying to save Charlie's life. Like they were certain that Charlie was dead already, and they just wanted to truck him off so nobody could get a good look at him.
Stephanie Soresi, thanks for the super chat. I keep thinking of Mikey on that vacation with Charlie Kirk taking pics. He said he wired up Charlie for the first time on that trip. I guess wired up the mic. Was that practice for 9/10?
Yeah,
no,
Mikey no. and the texting the whole time too. Like just like he barely even looked up. Like he was just texting the whole time, and he was texting Dan Flood, which was just, they could have talked to each other. And Dan Flood sends a text, and he looks over at Mikey's like, "Hey, did you get that?" And he barely even started to move before Mikey was on the horn telling people Charlie was dead. He got shot. It was very suspicious. Like if you were such a close friend, you hold out hope. You go and see, you go and try to help. Like you at least like confirm that something happened instead of like calling and giving the worst news possible.
Is there something you want to say, Kelly?
Jetting from the scene, but also just to note, he was not the one who mic'd up Charlie on that day. That was someone else. That guy's name was Philip. He has an Instagram post where he talks about, I had no idea this would be the last time that I would mic you up, Charlie. So, and plus we see that on video as well.
All right, looks like we have two from Lady Elder. Thanks for both of those super chats. Oscar Bravo again. Thanks for another super chat. The whole point of the event was to traumatize viewers. They were not planning on a neck wound. If the planned wound was from the mic, how would it be visible on video without a hole in the shirt?
Well, I think the reaction to the shirt and then, Charlie falling over dead would be more than enough for, the perceived effect of trauma. They wouldn't want the actual event itself to be so much the trauma as the things that unfold afterwards, which you can kind of see, like the big theatrics of his funeral and everything. Like everything was kind of queued up for the trauma to traumatize, and then the leaking of all the details of Tyler, to marginalize him. Like they were basically appealing to the masses to alienate and cast aside Tyler as the patsy, with these adulterous ways and degenerate habits and things like that. And then Charlie was the opposite of that. So it was made to be a polarizing event, and I don't think that they intended for the gruesome nature of it. It wouldn't be necessary.
Now, this is a really good question. Thank you, Tammy Stanford, for the super chat. John, does your program catch the shape or heat of a bullet, even if it was passing through thick of the neck? Also, could a device detector still scan grass for fly-off microplastic chip debris?
It's really just a pixel analysis, so you're just looking at movement. So the higher the frame the camera, the more it's going to be able to give you definition. So most of these are cell phone cameras, so like 30 frames per second, a few were 60 frames per second. So they were limited in what they could catch as far as like actual bullet. But as far as the cavitation and especially the reactions of the fabric, they were slow enough that you can get pretty good precision and resolution to give you solid data. And that's basically what I've been able to extrapolate. Is the fabric is what gave it away. Especially the white shirt with the high contrast black items on it, it just gave me exact items to track as they move.
So we have this here from Catherine. I think this is a correction from what I was talking about earlier when they were asking about the cost. So thanks for the super chat. She says, I asked about the cost of device to compare to Barron's document about a delivery from the explosives plant, not for home use.
Yeah, I don't know what the government was paying for it, but they're the government's pretty frugal. So I don't think AES was, getting rich off of making these devices.
Now, Cora Rue, thanks for the super chat. Why now? What happened to make them pull the trigger?
It's hard to say. We don't really understand what really goes on in our government. We only see the surface area of surface level of events and narratives that they allow us to know. Like there could be, levels of desperation in the government that we don't even begin to understand. And that's kind of like desperate governments take actions like this. You see, when you have empires on the brink of failing, they take these sort of actions to keep the populace in control. And it could have been very well just a psyop to keep people pacified.
Or in the intent of bringing the conservative party together. I mean, it was starting to really fracture at that point. And I think perhaps someone might have thought that it could bring people together when in fact, perhaps it's had the opposite effect.
Yeah. And Charlie would have been a potential candidate. So you got to look at they think well in the future. So if they
The
had
long game. Yeah.
if they had someone laid out that they had chosen that they wanted to be the next in line, and Charlie could, potentially, spoil that, then those conversations would be had, and then they would weigh the risk benefit. And if the benefit was higher than the risk, they would take action. Because they have very little repercussions for doing so.
All right, let's see. I'm just pulling up the rest of the super chats. It's refreshing here. And in the meantime, make sure you guys hit that like and subscribe. Go over to Kelly Raybon. She is on Instagram, X, and YouTube. And check out John. He is on X and Instagram as Jon Aaron, Aaron Bray. And I think what we'll do is, John, how you feeling?
I'm good.
We're going on 2 hours. I don't want to overextend. Yeah, a little bit longer. You want to do another maybe like 20 minutes, 20, 30 minutes?
Whatever you need.
That sounds good. I think that sounds good.
Okay, because we definitely don't want to overstay the welcome here. You're
We've
not
asked
gonna,
for a lot of his time, and people
twice.
have been, yes, twice now.
All right, Cynthia DeMoss, thanks for that super chat. And again, anyone that's watching, we have a lot of people that have joined. Any super chats or stickers or anything that you donate today are going to go to John, just so you know. Let's see. David Nevin, where are all the attendees' phones, videos hiding? So
It
thousands
was a
of people.
lot of videos. I go and looked at that crowd and how many people were recording, and we only have a fraction. We only seen a fraction of all the videos that were recorded that day. Like there's just the few that have come forward that had the higher quality of videos, these newer cameras. There was probably a dozen more of those same type cameras out there filming 1080p 4K 60 frames per second videos, and we just haven't seen them, and we don't know what happened to them. Those it's I hope that the videos like this and will motivate these people to come forward and kind of share them, because it could make a difference.
All right, Ivan is Ivan. It's funny that Mikey kept his backpack on versus leaving it in the vehicle. Maybe he's psychic.
There was anticipation. It was not like he wasn't a relaxed person that day. It was almost frantic in his behavior. Out of all the people that I kind of like watch and look at, he had the most suspicious behavior. Like there was not a moment that he relaxed that whole event. And he barely ever looked at Charlie the whole event. And that was always bothered me the most. It was either he was in his phone or he was talking to someone that was on the other side of Charlie. Like he was just like almost on purpose, just didn't ever glance his direction.
Let's see. Happy Healthy Human, thanks for becoming a channel member. Pam Simpson, thanks for the super sticker. Z Spot ATX, thanks for the super chat. Charlie would have been old enough to run for president of the U.S. in 2028. That's why now.
He would have been hard to beat too. Charlie was quite the debater. He knew how to make connections with people. He knew how to frame an argument. He would have been a very difficult candidate to beat.
Kerry Collins, thanks for the super chat. Great work, John. My skeptical Lieutenant Colonel retired United States Marine Corps husband said, finally, someone figured it out. Just ordered from your site. Products look great. And on that note, this is his site here. It's Blue Mountain Farm, OK, like Oklahoma.com. And they have all kinds of stuff from the beverages to, I guess there's like, skincare and that kind of stuff. Basically, it's like health, like living healthy, right? So go ahead and check them out. And it sounds like he puts as much focus and research and attention into this and developing this stuff as he does into this theory. So very, very thorough.
Someone was asking about the lard bars. Is that a thing that you have too?
No, we don't deal with lard. We just deal with tallow.
Okay. The tallow. Well, maybe you can explain the tallow to those who aren't familiar with that.
It's basically you look at like commercialized skincare. It's full of perfumes and fragrances that are bad for you, and then their bases are petroleum. Where tallow is pretty much the perfect skincare. It has all the vitamins you need. It simulates in the skin really well, and it comes from a natural source. And so we basically formulate with pure tallow, and then because of my dad has suffered from throat cancer, and he didn't want a traditional route, so a lot of his treatments were with ozone. And then I have a background with ozone too for textiles, so we ozonate our tallow so it doesn't have the beef smell, and the ozone's cellular regenerating, so it has another layer of healthy effects also. So it's just combining things that are natural and then elevating them with science is kind of our approach.
All right, very cool. We have Mystic Maverick. Wow, that's like the third or fourth one now. Thanks again for the super chat. Dark journalist Daniel List says assassinations always involve advanced tech. Was exploding Mike used as an experiment or because the rifle shot was risky?
I think the rifle shot was risky. You look at the assassination attempts that we've seen; they were missed shots or spoiled shots, And even if the shot hits, you're not guaranteed that you're going to, you know, kill the person, the target. So, you know, this was a way to ensure that not only that you had, you know, a successful assassination, but then you still had that conventional means that everyone's used to. You know, it ties to the tried and true method of the shooter from an elevated position, you know, taking the kill shot. It's just something that we've seen in movies, we've seen in real life. It's just very easy for people to believe. But, you know, the whole how it unfolded just made it very difficult for people to explain. You know, such a powerful bullet being stopped by a neck is just, it's hard for most people to swallow. And I think that's where a lot of the trouble started. And, you know, it's not going to go away. I think that, you know, more people open their mind to it, is the more difficult it's going to become for them to believe the official narrative. And unfortunately, more than likely, it'll just be another event that unfolds that'll try to just erase it from our memory because we'll focus on the next thing. So, you know, that's just how things unfold, unfortunately. But the more scrutiny we can place on, you know, the people that feed us these false narratives and take us for fools, the less likely that they'll try something like this in the future. So it's important that we do, you know, as dark as it is, that we continue to put light on these things.
Do you have I saw this isn't a super chat, this was just a separate question. Do you have any opinions on Alex Jones attacking Candace Owens? Do you get into any of that stuff, or do you follow any of it? Alex
Jones has always been an enigma to me. I feel like he's just controlled opposition, you know, like a red herring. He puts the narrative in such a crazy light and delivers it in such a frantic fashion that it makes it easy for like the rational minded people just to dismiss it. And so, you know, if you attach a lie to part of a truth, it makes that truth harder to spread. And I feel like that's kind of like Alex's Jones MO, is that you take something that has some truth to it and you put something sensational on it, you deliver it in a frantic manner, and then nobody believes it.
Well, he said he was doing it from a place of love, so that makes it different.
Yeah.
All right, Tammy Sanford. Hey, thanks for another super chat. Is it possible? So basically, she's saying top 5 podcasters should get together and pool some donations and hire a private investigator to track VIN number of the SUV and ask the new owner if the private investigator can investigate for plastics and powders and residue. No way every piece is gone. Evidence could be in the SUV.
That's absolutely correct. But I have a feeling the SUV is going to probably have a 50 cal mounted on it in the Middle East. The Taliban or somebody will be, you know, we'll see it on the news or something. It's not going to stay in America for long.
Get the Taliban funeral. All right, let's see. Edge, thank you for the super chat. John, thank you so much for sharing your time and expertise. I agree. Where is all the footage? Now,
and especially where's the cameras that were all around them? Like those cameras that have pristine video. Like that's the best evidence we have, and it's just like it wasn't there at all. Like the case could be made or broke on that, be it for proving that Tyler's the guy or not, and they're just unavailable. Like it's not there. Like it's just vaporized. You know, it's that alone is enough to make you suspicious, and the fact that the motive behind it and the actions of that organization afterwards makes it even more suspicious. You know, it's they had all the motivation in the world to provide that to everyone, but yet they don't. And then you see them completely like pivot away from the course that it was taken when Charlie was in charge, and it just, you know, everything lines up. Like maybe he was just an obstacle to where they were really wanting to go. And now that he's not in the way, they can do what they want. And the cameras don't help that. So we'll never see it.
What's your thoughts on, this is like a big what if, but what do you think the chances are? And I put this in a poll too. So for anyone that's doing the polls, there's a new one that just updated. But what are the chances you think that they have evidence, like 4K video footage from the roof of the Losey Center that shows him taking the shot and all of that stuff? And they just didn't put it out along with the affidavit.
If they had it, they would have showed it to us.
Yeah.
Like, just the fact that he's running across the building in that shorter time, like it just seems unlikely. And the whole rooftop, there's gravel everywhere. And we have pretty good photos, high resolution photos of that rooftop. Like you don't see someone hopping up and running from those spots. Like you can see a spot where someone laid down, right, prone position. It looks like someone fiddled around with something there, but there's no like footprints of someone hopping up quickly and running across the building. Like, and that's just, these are things that if they were trying to prove the case, if they were actually, doing their due diligence and, finding the truth, they would show us these things. Like, why would they show us a video of him halfway across the roof, and then show us a bunch of videos of him walking around the neighborhood from Ring doorbells? Like, it just seems so odd that just the way the whole evidence rolled out. They just make things up and then spread it to us and then take them back a few months later. Like, it's just like playing us for fools. Like, we'll just believe anything they tell us.
All right, this one here. Thanks for the super chat, Stephanie Saresi. Another one. Thanks for another super chat. What to do if Tyler's lawyers ignore the investigation of citizen sleuths and just let Tyler get life or the death penalty? The legal team was appointed.
I think this is just another psyop. Is demoralizing people to our justice system. So if they come in with a replacement or they suggest drastic changes, we'll accept them because we've lost all hope in our current system. So, like I said, they have attended goals when they approach these type of scenarios. They understand what they're trying to accomplish, and regardless of the risks involved, they understand that they can not face any consequences for those risks. And if they do, they'll just find a fall guy to take the risk, and they'll still accomplish their goals. And I think this is just another one of the goals.
Now, really quick in the chat, if you think that the legal team and the judge and those that are trying Tyler are involved in this, put a 1. If you think that they're not, put a 2 in the chat. I'm very interested to see what people think because I haven't really asked people this question. All right, let's go to the next super chat. Jison, thanks for the super chat. I pray that Charlie didn't feel any pain. Yes, and very tragic. Ivan is Ivan, thanks for another super chat. The Doge audit will provide a massive amount of data once completed. Oh, wait, they canceled that audit. Yeah.
I still think that audit seems, I don't know, it seems a little odd to me. I just wonder if it could have been, if this thing, was kind of set up in advance, that announcing an audit ahead of time just seems a little odd to me.
Nonprofits are always shady. And when you have like layers of nonprofits, it's not one, there's like 6 or 7 nonprofits. They're just shuffling stuff. You'll never get
money's going everywhere.
You'll never figure it out. Yeah. It's just the ultimate money laundering machine. Like, you can take money from anywhere and make it seem like it fits somewhere. It's just, and especially because they're fighting for a demographic that's very important for them. This college age people, they're losing that narrative. They're losing, it's a very important demographic. They would spend a lot of money and take a lot of risks to affect those minds. And I think that's another reason we see, the level of pressure that we see on it.
Well, and now they're coming for the high schools too, with full force.
Yep.
Thanks, Edge, for the super chat. This is about your care products. Is refrigeration required for your skincare products?
No, that's the beauty of ozone. It's basically a preservative too. So not only does it eliminate the odor, but unlike regular tallow is like 6 months shelf life outside of the fridge. Like, you're good for 2 years with the ozone in it. It's basically preserving it also, but it's a preservative that's good for you.
Let's see. Soul in. Thanks for the super chat. CK was changing his position on Israel. If that got out, it would have done irreparable damage to Israel's reputation with the younger generation. So RIP. And
it's an important demographic. It's that demographic is the worst numbers for them as far as opinions of that nation state. And so, if you look at a group of people that is most important for them to have, improve their numbers on, that is the group that it is.
Let's see. Lady Elder, another super chat. Thank you. How was the microphone detonated from a distance? Did the person use a frequency? So there's been a lot of people kind of asking that question, like what type of technology could do this?
Yeah. So a supersonic crack of a projectile, it's actually the bullet itself is giving off of that sound frequency as it travels past. It's giving it out, and it's a very unique sound wave. You wouldn't be able to replicate it any other way. So acoustic trigger, not only are you very low probability of a false trigger because it's a very unique sound, but it is timed perfectly because it travels faster than the sound itself. So you have a little delay in between the microphone hearing the sound, processing it, and triggering the explosive. But by the time all that happened, using the chipset that's already on the microphone to delay it however many milliseconds they needed, because more than likely they knew how far the shot was going to be from, or their supposed shot. They could time it absolutely perfect. So by the time that sound wave arrived, the explosive is going off.
And by acoustic, for those who don't know what he's talking about, is just the audio from the shot would trigger the microphone. Let's see. Irona, thanks for the super chat. Juice, donors play into all the stereotypes. Juice, okay. I cannot and will not be bullied like this, leaving me no choice but to leave the pro-Israel cause. Charlie Kirk. Yep, and the timing was interesting on that as well. How soon things happened after that. Ivan is Ivan, thanks for another super chat. Alex Jones, for the love of money.
Can you sing it for us? Sing it. We're all waiting for it. We know you've got the voice.
I could, but I'm embarrassed now. Austin's Corner, thanks for the super chat. I think they wanted it done like that in front of everyone, so no need to investigate. All government bad now. What?
That's a great point. When everyone sees it and everyone can reach their own conclusion, nobody has a problem with a trial just ripping right through it. Put the kid in front of the firing squad. Everybody was ready to kill that kid a few days after it happened. People were begging for it. So it's an absolute, psych op, understanding people's nature. People see a tragedy, they want vengeance. They get bloodthirsty. So it's very easy for someone in that mindset to overlook, extraneous factors that don't make sense. They just want to have it wrapped up. We killed the guy, everything's done. Poor Charlie, and going with their lives.
All right, we have XFM Richie. Have you checked for where the audio from Charlie's mic was sent? If missing, then you can check for serial number of MAC address of mic components. This would verify mic replacement or swap.
It's a great question. It's one of those cameras had the receiver. So, that Rogue Pro comes with 2 microphone transmitters and a receiver, a single receiver to a pair of microphones. So the other pair are still out there somewhere, and the receiver was hooked to one of those cameras that was around Charlie, because that's why they had it. The PA was for everyone in the audience to hear, but for the audio that they were recording, that's why they had a separate microphone, so it could sync up and they could have everything tied. When they played the video back, everything was synced perfectly. So one of those cameras that was recording Charlie that day had that receiver on it. And if it wasn't an acoustic trigger, that would be the next most likely trigger, because that device is already communicating with the wireless microphone. So it would be the next easiest thing to have trigger the explosion.
I have a question, and for some reason I can't get it to show up on here, but so I'll just read it off. It says, Jon Bray, have you looked into hollow pendants? They are commonly used as mini urns and are packed with, and they could be packed with explosive power. Would there be enough in one of those little mini urns, I guess?
Yeah, that from what I've seen pictures of that cross, you could definitely fit enough explosive in there to explain the amount of deformation and the energy that we saw displaced. Like, it could definitely, I think people put cremated ashes in them and things like that. And, it could just have been a custom made piece of jewelry too. Like, it's absolutely probable that pendant could have carried that charge. The only thing that bothers me about that is how do you trigger it? You have to have an energy source. So, it ties another level of complication to it, where the battery is a kind of like a more proven means to do it.
And another quick thing about those mics as well is the transmitters themselves can be standalone recorders, so they don't have to have the receiver. But I think they come out, the receiver and transmitters definitely come out in controlled pairs with serial numbers. So you would be able to tell if that original transmitter receiver was paired with the one that was actually on him, if we had access to it, and if you could actually get the serial number and stuff off of it. All right, let's see. Z-Spot ATX, thanks for another super chat. What's the chances they lied to Tyler about what was really going to happen? Do you think he knew what was going to happen?
No, I'll be willing to bet there's no telling the levels that, this poor kid was manipulated to wherever they needed him to go. I'm sure it was a nefarious means that they tricked him into doing it. Or he could have actually, been a willing participant. He may have thought that he was actually going to help, assassinate Charlie. But I seriously doubt that he intended to go on the roof and pull the trigger himself. It just seems like, a far-fetched plan to try to walk around campus with a rifle down your pant leg and sneak up on the roof and take a shot and then run off through the woods. It just seems like a suicide plot.
I don't give a dom. That's funny. Thanks for the super chat. Jones going after Owens after Nardello and company bankrupted him and his parents and forced InfoWars sale. It's a hail, Candace. As in 2025, the Macrons hired the same firm to investigate Owens. I emailed and X'd you, Kelly. So Kelly, you must have this information.
I'll be on the lookout. Thank you.
All right, let's see. We got a few more here. Ivan is Ivan, thanks for another super chat. The Fed is creating the video showing Tyler taking the shot. AI is a wonderful thing. And you kind of spoke to that earlier. People can take videos, put it into AI, manipulate things, and have it pop back out. But you, how easy is it for the average person to spot those artifacts?
Well, security camera is pretty grainy. They're usually low frames per second. Like, probably be easier to fake a security camera video than anything else. I mean, we see like the Epstein suicide thing. They just released, that's come out and people were claiming that that's fake. So it's like
immediately they were saying that.
Yeah, it's security cameras are like the easiest thing to fake. It's just not a high frame rate. They're usually pretty low resolution, poor fixed angle. They don't have like, you don't see the definition of the people's faces. It's usually the back of their head. So if anything would be faked, it would be something like that.
All right. And then we have 2 new channel members. Leah Prioli, thanks for being a channel member. And Silver Moon Alpha, thanks for becoming a member. I'm looking through some more questions. Is there anything else? Like, did you have any sort of final thoughts or anything that you want to summarize kind of about like maybe your next steps? Like, where do you see yourself going from here now that you've kind of done all this research? You've done a lot of the programming and the coding. You looked at all the different angles and stuff. Kind of where are you at now?
What do you need still? What do you need?
More video angles. And the next thing is to combine the angles, basically the data from each independent angle, combine them together and kind of get a 3D representation of kind of what went on. We have really good angles from far, a few that are real close to each other from the right side, 2 that are close to each other on the center. But the left side, we only have one that's kind of like fuzzy, shaky, and lower resolution. So any videos that might be on that left side would be a huge help. And then combine those together to kind of, try to get more accurate resolution on what exactly unfolded underneath the shirt. Like the mysteries underneath the shirt, that's where our answers are. You don't need to look in the crowd or anywhere else. Like everything we need to know about that event to unfold the truth of what happened is underneath the shirt. And the more angles and eyes we get on that, the more we'll be able to get closer to the truth.
What would be your biggest takeaway for people that you want people to walk away from this stream knowing, if this is the only time that they have a chance to get to hear from you?
Just, believe your eyes. Like you have more sense than what the government ever give you credit for. You just don't be spoon-fed information. Use your own good common sense and, look into it for yourself and forget what people tell you and just use the eyes God gave you and make sense of it for yourself. At the end of the day, you're the one that's going to have to rest with it. So try to make, something that makes you feel like it's closer to the truth than what you're fed, because if what they give you is going to, be what benefits them, it's not going to be, it's not going to be closer to the truth just because it comes from, someone with authority. If anything, the more authority they have, the more likely it is they're going to use that to lie to you. So just, take all the information you can and just assemble it together for yourself and make sense of it.
All right, we have one more super chat here, and then we're going to give John the much needed break. Over the top. Thanks for the super chat. The dude with the funny self video, that'd be Terrell.
No, not that one, actually. Sorry, I'll interrupt you. It's the Ryan Times one.
Oh, okay. They shot Charlie, shot
Oh,
Charlie, shot
sorry.
Charlie.
No. I apologize. I sorry, my bad. We'll come back to the Ryan Times one because I want to ask
Okay.
about that too.
Okay, so this is the Terrell one though, right? Where he's
Yes.
up. Okay.
It is.
Yeah, meant to imprint the shooting in people's minds, psychological diversion to make them think it was a shot right away.
Yep, they killed Charlie. They shot Charlie. They shot Charlie. They shot Charlie. And then he pans over to show him loading Charlie into the vehicle. You know what I mean? Like the timing of it all. Like there were some things that were obviously orchestrated. Like you don't move with such purpose, and especially a traumatic event like that. There's a certain level of chaos in there that it just those few seconds are lost to most people. But if you're aware of it beforehand, then you move with purpose, and that's what we see from a few cast of characters there. They moved with absolute purpose. If anything, they moved too fast, and it made it obvious. And that's another case with Mikey turning around, hopping on the phone, this guy hopping behind the wall, getting a high level so he can get clear view of the Charlie getting loaded in the vehicle, and claiming Charlie's dead before anybody has any idea that Charlie's dead or not. Like you at that point, there's you can't, from even what we saw, there's no way to ascertain that Charlie was dead at that point. But he was absolutely convinced of it, and he was delivering that message. And there's a reason for that. Things like that just don't happen for no reason, especially in the fog of chaos like that. Like that was orchestrated and planned. Like he knew that was his objective, and he hopped up there and he delivered his lines like he was supposed to.
And that was not a first time for him being around Charlie. He had worked with that team, for quite some time. He had, it seemed to be, a friendship, not only a business relationship and a friendship with Charlie. I just cannot fathom, running and doing that. I apologize. Oh, go ahead, John.
And they shot Charlie. It's like they're already preparing you for that. The left shot Charlie. They wasn't he or someone, it was they. Like it was already prepared. It just shows you that this was a psychological operation. They knew they were playing on our emotions, and they were taking out a figure that people had admiration for, and for whatever motive they had, they were going to make the best out of it. And this was just putting the pieces together to program our minds to react a certain way. And it's our emotions are the most vulnerable things we have, and they were just playing on our emotions.
Yeah, and I apologize, Matt, for injecting there and interrupting you. But I thought that I'd seen a comment earlier asking about the selfie video, talking about videos. And anyway, it was one that was from this guy Ryan Times that was ultimately deleted, but it was one that John and I had discussed too. But talking about the AI videos and things like that, John, you want to address how, I don't know, some of that misinformation kind of made its way through
it's just
the passes.
It's people again playing on the emotions, like becoming a victim of oppression, from when they were completely misrepresenting the whole scenario. It's just diversion. The more that they can divert from the truth, be it through a low quality fake video or someone with a fake narrative, the more they obscure the truth and they get us chasing ghosts and looking outside of the things that are important. The last thing they want us to do is just looking at what happened to Charlie, because none of it makes sense. They would much rather have us chasing the 3,000 people in the crowd, figuring out who was the shooter, who was involved, or who's involved with the French Legion, or this or that and the other, or the drones, whatever they can do to get us looking elsewhere other than the events that happened to Charlie in that 6 seconds is a win for them, because anything else is not going to lead to the truth. Our truth is in a very short fragment of time, and all we have to do is just keep examining it and wait for more details to unfold, and we'll arrive at the conclusion. But we're not going to be given it. We're going to have to find it ourselves.
All right, we just had two last supers that came in. Carrie Collins, thanks for the super chat. John, please paint your roof blue. Is that because of the Blue Mountain?
I don't know, maybe because it's all reflective. I like the shiny roof myself.
And Veronica Kelly, thanks for the super sticker. So I think at this point, John's given us, a ton of information, a lot to think about. Obviously, he's very well researched. But again, you can find his information here. Let me put it up one more time. We have Jon Bray on X. It's John Aaron Bray. Same on Instagram. And then his website for the health products and the beverages is bluemountainfarmok.com. And everyone in the chat, if you can say thanks, Jon, and thank him for his time here. He's been awesome. And same thing for Kelly. Say thanks, Kelly. Kelly and I, a lot of people, especially after the last stream, were saying that I was talking over her, or we were like something was weird there. We were having major audio issues, and we actually spent about 2 or 3 hours last night trying to figure it out, and still didn't technically figure it out. So it's not that we weren't letting her talk; it's that we couldn't hear her. So when she would start to talk, we were already talking about something else because we didn't know she was talking. So I just want to let people know, like, there's no, like, we're not like oppressing her or any of that kind of stuff. I just want to make sure everyone knows that. And we are very thankful for Kelly, and it's been great co-hosting with her and doing this stuff. And we might be working on a little side project, but we'll wait to see if we can announce that a little bit later on. Kelly's been awesome. And then also Allie, Top Files, some of the stuff I've shown and a lot of the information behind the scenes comes from her as well. She's great at sourcing images, primarily like images and video. So thanks, Allie, for that. And then Jon, is there anything specific that you're looking for that is like a missing piece or like a missing link that you can think of that people can start looking into maybe?
Fragmentation, any video, from any of the angles, trying to see little jagged pieces fall out of his shirt, fly out or around. Like, these are kind of like anything that can further, kind of add validity to the fact that some sort of energetic event happened to that microphone helped tremendously.
All right, awesome. So what we'll do is we'll call it there. We appreciate everyone being here. If you can hit that like, that's the biggest thing you can do to help us out right now. And again, Jon, thanks. We appreciate having you on. Same with you, Kelly. And I'll leave you with Santa Claus drinking a beer with his gun. Let me get this off the stage here. There we go. Have a trigger happy Christmas. Have a beer with Santa Claus and his gun and his cookies and milk. And we hope you all have a Merry Christmas. Thank you very much.
Merry Christmas.